Having trouble with indecisiveness, stress, or managing your feelings? If yes, you're looking for Serious Joy. Serious Joy is a predictive astrology service that is so amazingly accurate, you have to try it to believe it. Just enter the date, location, and time of your birth, and Serious Joy will calculate your life story using our proprietary step astrology algorithm. It's that easy. Serious Joy is your guardian sensei in the cloud. Every alert message is custom written for you. You are coached into your strengths and warned about weaknesses ahead of time. And say goodbye to surprise mood swings. If it sounds too good to be true, then try it for yourself. If you're not convinced Serious Joy knows you better than you know yourself, cancel anytime. Get serious about your joy. Visit SeriousJoy.com.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to Namaste Today, live. I'm your host, Sensei Christopher Witecki. Welcome to yet another fantastic Friday. It's Fun Live Friday, and we are having our live Namaste Today with our community around the world, multicasting to several platforms right now. We're on YouTube, LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, and we're even right now on Twitter, which is now called X, if you don't know, formerly known as Twitter. Nice to see everyone here, folks. It's such a pleasure to be of soul service. And my goodness, I have predicted this last week pretty well. It is has been a surreal week, as I predicted. Energy is kind of funky. In fact, even today, I was just saying backstage, the energy today is a little funky. We're at step 2, Virgo. So we're starting to get the real feels of our reality. Let's say hello to everybody. Hello, Tammy. Hello, Sydney. Hello, Matt. Hello, LL. Hello, Vivian. Hello, Jenny Pepper. Hello, Ida. Hello, Lori. It's such a pleasure to have everyone here. We are honored to be in your presence. And this is a super chat, if y'all don't know. So anywhere you happen to hop in the chat, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, they're all being combined into one mega super chat so we can all bring our community together. It sure is nice to be here, folks, and I'm grateful for you. We have a fantastic show for you today. Of course, we're going to do our normal astrology. So we'll start off with our planets and transit segment. I'll talk about what's going on this week, how we're now in the sign of Virgo. Then we'll do our tea time and do horoscopes for all 12 signs, talking about what a full moon this week in Pisces, I know I was going to say Leo, a full moon in Pisces and how it's going to affect you. And for our Astro Mingle segment, we have a very special guest, Angel Intuitive Devin Doer is here from Serious Joy and also from her own services. Devin's going to be talking about what it's like to connect to the angels and give us some tips and tricks on how to connect. But before we dive into all that amazing content, let's kick off this show with our Zodiac Weather. This week's Zodiac Weather is from Saturday, August 26th to Friday, September 1st, 2023. Looking at your weekend forecast, this weekend is all about self-discovery and realizing that you are not who you seek to become. Let's drill down. On Saturday, it's sunny and clear-cut. Step 3 means Jupiter rules the day, and so this will be the day that's philosophical. You'll be exploring who you have become and looking for theories of who you want to become. On Sunday, it's sunny and shifting. This is an unpredictable day. We move from step 3 to step 4, so it goes from Jupiter to Uranus. Expect the unexpected, as the old relationship to yourself will break down, leaving room for who you want to become. And with the sun opposing Saturn, you're ready to take responsibility for the old karma with yourself. Moving on to your 5-day weekday moodcast, this week is really about the breakthrough of who you want to become and committing to that new person. Let's drill down. On Monday, it's cloudy and meh. Step 4 means Uranus rules the day today. Expect the unexpected. You're basically innovating who you become on the inside. And with the moon moving into Aquarius, you're feeling the electricity of change. And ironically, it's on this day that Uranus stations retrograde in Taurus. On Tuesday, it's going to be cloudy and rather spaced out. You'll be in your head. It's a Mercury-ruled day. You'll be all over the map and basically reframing the way you think of yourself and reframing your potential to become someone else. On Wednesday, it's sunny and cool. Step 6 means Venus rules the day. It's a day of creativity, resting and receiving. You are accepting the fact that you're becoming someone new, And the day tops off with a full moon in Pisces at 9:35 p.m. Eastern Time, USA. Then on Thursday, it's foggy but faithful. Step 7 means Neptune rules the day. This is the aftermath of the full moon. You'll be in and out as far as focus is concerned, but you will find new faith in who you become. And then on Friday, it's sunny and clear. Step 8 means Saturn rules the day. This will be a serious day of taking responsibility for your life. You're committing to a new Me-ality, and when the moon moves into Aries later on that day, you'll be fully ready to get started. Fantastic. And you can see we have quite a week ahead really coming into the Virgo consciousness. But before I dive into that, if you're not already familiar, my full-time job, 7 days a week, is the Serious Joy Personal Sensei service. This is a service based on spiritual growth, if you don't know. We're a very unique astrology app. Most apps will sort of give you the context of what the planets are doing, but we have a life coaching approach, and we have a full team of practitioners that will help you life coach 7 days a week. We do audio podcasts 7 days a week, my friend. We have a sound healer named Kristen Ryder who guides people through the power of sound to clear the heart chakra. We have a metaphysical minister and astrologer, Robbie Hunt. She does some special metaphysical segments on the weekends and is also a big part of our birthday segment every day, knowing what your birthday is and what that means for you. We also have Heather Exposito. She's our lead writer, and she co-stars in a couple of shows. And we have today's guest later in Astro Mingle, Devin Dewar, an angel intuitive, providing segments 7 days a week. So it's 7 days a week based on your chart, helping you through these energies. And friends, it's never been a more important time than now than to get support, because we're on the verge of breakthrough. We're on the verge of moving to a new place in our life, a new vibration of living. And you don't have to do it alone. You have a community of friends and like-minded people. It's a gated community, so you can come back, hang out, chat, learn, and be with people just like yourself. For more information, visit seriousjoy.com. I'll have some tips and tricks to what our service is providing at the end of the show. So as we move into this week, we have a lot of planets and transits happening. Plus, we're also getting ready for a re-evolution. It's time for our planets and transits. That chipmunk video, by the way, was taken by me at Yellowstone National Park. In fact, all the videos this week are all from my Yellowstone trip that was a couple of weeks ago. Well, friends, we are in a very interesting time, really the time of our life, although it doesn't feel that way, I'm quite sure, right, for all of us. We are upon a transition to a new vibration, really, of civilization. I mean, if you want to go like 1,000 feet up and look at the big picture of things, we're in the transition to the age of Aquarius. Now, we cannot move into the age of Aquarius until we graduate the age of Pisces. And the age of Pisces consciousness, which goes all the way back, of course, to the introduction of Christ. It was over 2,000 years ago when that age began. Humanity was looking to integrate our awareness of our spirituality into our daily life. That's what the age of Pisces was, to recognize that we are spirits incarnate. And I think for some reason in the Dark Ages, we had lost that knowledge. When we had the age of Aries is when we went into a very warring age. And I think we disconnected from knowing that we were all connected spiritually. We had polytheism, so we had many, many gods. But then the age of Pisces, we started to realize that we are, in fact, a God incarnate, that we are a reflection of God. And as we wrap up here the age of Pisces, it's now time to embody that truth, to embody that spiritual truth inside of us. And we really are at that moment right now. And I say that for many reasons, and I'll talk about astrologically this week. But the biggest reason that I think it's our cue to understand the age of Pisces is the fact that we have Neptune in Pisces for the first time since the 1860s, right before the American Civil War. And given that context of Neptune and Pisces, we have Saturn in Pisces, which means we're taking responsibility for our spiritual truth. And I'll speak more on that in today's show as well. But not only is that happening, we also have a re-evolution of power that is happening. And I've had many comments offline. In fact, what inspired me to talk about this today, what I'm about to talk about, is I want to underscore the fact that we are in a big transition of power. And I had a reading this week, and my client asked, Sensei, you're always talking about us raising the love vibration, but when are we going to have to fight? Like, it seems like, when are we going to have to actually pick up our weapons and actually fight? And I said, I hope we don't have to, but I do believe that we are going to face some sort of conflict, especially in the United States, especially over power, and especially regarding our freedoms. And this is something we've already begun to go through as the United States has gone through its Pluto return. What a Pluto return is Pluto returning to the position it was at the time of the Declaration of Independence. So Pluto is in Capricorn for the first time since the Declaration of Independence, which means the United States is 1 Pluto year old, but it also means that we are now upon the first transition of power since the birth of democracy. Now, Pluto first had its return to the U.S. Constitution in February of 2022. And Pluto, our national Pluto, is at 27 degrees Capricorn, which basically means a transformation of power. Pluto 27 is a transformation of power. So this country, the United States, was built on that transformation. We will have Pluto go back retrograde to 27 degrees Capricorn this next September 21st, which means that the United States will once again be in a power conflict. Now, I bring this up because I'm going to get into the details of where we are personally growing right now and how we're personally coming into our own stories, our golden age, our golden egg project, as I talk about, but also I talk about the story we were born to live. And I'll speak to that in our individual horoscopes this week. I'll speak to that in the planets and transits in a moment. But I want to put out there to give a big global picture that this is for the purpose of the fact that we are going to go through a human re-evolution and a power re-evolution. And the next chapter of that power struggle here in the US anyways, but I also think it happens internationally because the US has its fingers in so much of the world economy and has its fingers in so much of the world's political systems. It is going to be our second round of our Pluto return here on September 21st. So we're not just preparing for our own personal stories, we're preparing for our role that we will play in the human re-evolution, which I do believe will apex for the final time next year in 2024, as far as the real struggle is concerned. And the US election next year in November of 2024, the Pluto will move into Aquarius and then stay there until 2048. So what Pluto does is transform our boundaries, all right? Transforms where we have boundaries and what our limitations are. It also, in the sign, tells us what we are transforming. And what's interesting, I did some research and I thought it'd be super fascinating to compare right now the Pluto generations we have on the planet with the Pluto generations of our forefathers. In other words, in astrology, your generation is defined by what sign Pluto is in. And in our lifetime, we have witnessed currently on the planet, alive right now, are people who are born in Pluto in Cancer, Pluto in Leo. Pluto in Cancer, which is basically known as the silent generation. These are people who lived through the Depression right up to World War II. We have the baby boomers, basically, and the baby boomers were from 1946 to 1964. These are Pluto Leo generation people. We have Generation X, Gen X as it's known, born from 1958 to 1972. And these are people who are Pluto Virgo and Pluto Libra generation. Then we have Generation Y, also known as the Millennials. And the Millennials were born in Pluto and Scorpio. So these are the ones who actually have, who will do the most work to transform boundaries. And we have Generation Z, which is the 1997 to 2012. And there's yet another one after that, after 2012. So Pluto in Capricorn are known as the Alpha generation. I'm not sure why. I think because we're going back to the letter A, and maybe because they're Pluto Capricorn, so they're all about being macho. Now, this spectrum, what's fascinating to me is this spectrum of Pluto generations is the same spectrum that was in the American Revolution in 1776. You had the same Pluto generations all showing up for this human re-evolution back at that time. And I thought you might find it interesting to know what some of the forefathers' generation was. So, first of all, as far as the silent generation, Pluto in Cancer, I couldn't find any forefathers that are Pluto in Cancer. I think that's because those people would be quite old, frankly, right now. But you might not be surprised to know that the Pluto silent generation is President Biden and Bernie Sanders and Pelosi. So Pelosi, Sanders, and Biden are all from the silent generation. And in the old American Revolution, they were too old to be a part of it, just so you know. So that tells you right now just how age expectation has sort of played out. But they didn't really have a strong voice in the American Revolution, from what I can tell. I didn't see any forefathers with Pluto in Cancer. Now, fascinating enough, the baby boomers of the American Revolution, if you want to call them baby boomers, the only one that was very prominent was Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin had Pluto and Leo. I'm not sure at what degree, but Benjamin Franklin, actually, interesting fact about him is he had his sun was on the United States Pluto 27 degrees. So Benjamin Franklin actually was sort of an answer to the revolution in lots of ways. And he really did provide a lot of, he was an inventor, provided everything, including our post office service. I can go on and on. But the baby boomers of the American Revolution, Benjamin Franklin. The baby boomers today that are in political circle is Donald Trump is a baby boomer. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is a baby boomer, just to kind of put it in perspective. The Gen Xers of the American Revolution was George Washington. He was a Gen Xer, basically. Paul Revere was a Gen Xer as well. Currently, the Gen Xers in office are President Obama was a Gen Xer, and Paul Rand is a Gen Xer right now. The Generation Y, or the millennials of the American Revolution, the millennials in the American Revolution were Thomas Jefferson. So the author of the Declaration of the Independence was basically a millennial. So if you're a millennial, you had the vision for the Declaration of Independence. You had Pluto in Scorpio. You were the one to draw the lines. And ironically, King George III, which was the king we were having a revolution against, that king is also a millennial. He had Pluto at 10 degrees Scorpio. He was a 13-degree Gemini, a step 13 Gemini. By the way, Thomas Jefferson was a step 23 Aries. Then in the Generation Z, currently right now, the Generation Ys, the millennials in office, are Alexandria Cortez and Matt Gaetz. Those are two senators or congressmen, congress lady who are represent Generation Y and the millennials. And then finally, Generation Z, which of course is 97 to 2012, Pluto and Sagittarius people. Alexander Hamilton was probably one of the youngest that was in the American Revolution. He was Pluto and Sagittarius. And James Madison was also a Generation Z, Pluto and Sagittarius. There's only one congressperson representative who represents Generation Z, and that's Maxwell Frost, who was recently elected as a Florida 10th District House congressperson. So House of Representatives I was looking for. So I thought that was very interesting, just to sort of compare and contrast. And I bring it up because, I do fully believe that we are up against some sort of re-evolution of power in our lifetime. I believe that re-evolution is about to kick off. Where we are in comparison to the American Revolution is when Pluto was at this degree, last time America was already at war with Great Britain. So this is when we began to go to war, is in these degrees of Pluto. And we're about to have these same degrees of Pluto, and our United States Pluto return happened for its second pass here on September 21st. And just like the original re-evolution that we had in the 1700s, I believe everyone born right now will play some part, if nothing else, holding light, holding love, prayer, keeping the vibration high. We're all going to play, I think, some role in our restructuring of power. And that really brings us to where we are today. Where we are today, my friends, is preparation to become the story we're meant to live. The story we were born to live is how I like to put it. And this is in contrast to the story we were born to. I've spoken this many times, but in a brief setting, I believe that we had two major tasks in this lifetime to accomplish as citizens. One task was to face our karma, probably the karma that we've had since the last revolution or last power struggle, because of the Neptune cycle of Neptune in Pisces. So every time Neptune goes into Pisces, the earth and the civilization of earth becomes one more spiritual year old. Goddess knows how long that goes back in time, to be honest with you. But I do believe that with Neptune returning to Pisces for the first time since it left in 1860, right before the American Civil War. It returned to Pisces in 2012, which just happens to be the end of Generation Z. So what's interesting is the Alpha generation is part of the new spiritual. Those born after 2012 are born into the new spiritual age. Those born before 2012 are part of transforming that spiritual age, and they're part of transforming that spiritual age by transforming themselves. Whether you believe it or not, we are a spiritual democracy. If 2/3 of our spiritual population goes down in fear and horror, it pulls the rest of us because we are collectively one energy. We come from one source. And so it really takes each individual carrying their own spiritual weight to evolve the earth. The earth will not evolve unless everyone, or the majority, I think, of the souls, pitches in. I literally believe it's a metaphysical physics equation. So where we are in this particular moment in that big picture of things is we are literally in this week wrapping up the story we were born to, wrapping up the story, that the karmic story that we were born into, that we had to face. And this is represented by Saturn now in Pisces. And this week we'll have a full moon in Pisces at Grandmaster 7 degrees Pisces. It will conjunct Saturn in Pisces. And it's my theorem that that is the official moment where we sort of christen the new life, the new spiritual cycle, and we say goodbye to the old spiritual cycle. And we will inevitably be working out the kinks and the details of that transition, of that proclamation of a new spiritual cycle for the rest of the Saturn in Pisces transit. So Saturn in Pisces will then carry that out. And the way it works is each of us in our own life, ironically, it is your own karma with yourself that inevitably determines the karma of the planet. So it's like if you don't face your shadow, the hangups that you have with yourself, if you don't face the way you treat yourself and heal from the issues within yourself, there's no way you can hold higher vibration for your family, your neighbors, or your community. There's no way you can operate from that higher spiritual point of view if you're still stuck inside yourself, treating yourself like you did in the dark ages. So this week is the final touches, I believe, or the final intentions. That's a better way of putting it, because I think Saturn will carry this out as Saturn climbs up through the Pisces spectrum. But this is the week where, with that full moon, we say goodbye, farewell to the spiritual story we were born to within ourselves, and we embrace this new chapter with ourselves. Now, if you're not familiar with the metaphysics of astrology, Pisces is our spiritual self, our spiritual energy, and Virgo is the incarnation of our spiritual energy. So from Pisces to Virgo, you have from heaven to earth. Pisces is the heavenly spiritual intentions, but still a physical form. So Pisces is real energy. It is manifested energy. I believe one day the soul will be able to be recorded with technology. It's not now. Maybe it is now, but it's been hidden from population. It's possible that we can record the soul, but science isn't revealing that, like if that's the case. But ultimately, Pisces is that spiritual lesson that we agreed to do before we came down. I believe Pisces consciousness is sort of the pre-manifest intelligence of our soul's progression on Earth. And in that Pisces energy are our goals, our bucket list, our intentions for what we intend to make real, for what we intend to become real. And that making and becoming real is the Virgo consciousness. So What we be spiritually is what comes in Virgo. What we be in Pisces is what comes in Virgo. And this week, we are going to commit over the course of this week to what we become, the Virgo energy. And at the same time, with the full moon in Pisces, we are going to change and shift what we be in our essence, what we be in our soul, what we be in our spiritual energy. So as we move on to this week, the title of the week, and again, if you like to take notes, I always say, well, get the theme of the week down. This is the best thing. The theme of the week is facing my me-ality. And I use the word me-ality to describe our inner reality. So reality is everything outside of yourself. Me-ality is everything inside of yourself. One of my little buzz terms that I took full liberty of my Saturn and Gemini to invent words. Like if you have Saturn and Gemini, you feel like you have the right, by God, to invent words. So I invent words all the time. Me-ality is one of those words I have invented. Also, mirage is another word I have invented. But in essence, we are going to change this week and face what our me-ality is, what our me-ality has become on the inside. And I've spoken to this in prior episodes. I talked about, and I'll say it again right now, that Virgo consciousness is, for all purposes, the physical me-ality, the physical reality. Our me-ality is our body, our health, our five senses. The sixth sense would be Pisces. The five senses would be Virgo. It is our senses. It is our blood, our organs, our muscles, and it is what the present reality inside of us is like. So you may have a me-ality of depression. You may have a me-ality of fatigue. You may have a me-ality of dis-ease. You may have a me-ality of sorrow. And whatever this me-ality is, the day in and day out of what you experience as a human being, this is the net result of what you have been or what you be in spirit behind the scenes. And so what you have become physically in reality. Now, reality is an illusion, and we can go into the details of that just using physics. I mean, I'll give you one just quick example. I learned this early in college. Like if you put a neutron, which is the center of an atom, right? It's the center of the sun of an atom. The atoms are like little solar systems, but with just simple charges. If you put a neutron and made it the size of a marble. So if you made a neutron the size of a marble and you put that marble in the center of a football stadium, okay, the first orbiting electron of that neutron would be the highest bleacher of that football stadium. That's how much space is between one neutron and an electron. And of course, those spinning charges, a charge spinning around a neutral, and electrons spinning around, that's the basis of what is solid matter. So regardless of how solid you seem to be, it's really an illusion. We're really not solid. We appear solid from energetic phasing in and out, from orbiting electrons around neutrons, but we're not really real. Still, we are duped by reality. We tend to think like this is something that can't change with it. And we get stuck in this sort of thinking because this is all we know, blood and tears and sweat and pain. We start to believe that we're stuck in this particular form, that we can't change reality, that you have to accept it and move on is what we are told. And of course, science is the main machine that propagates this idea or this myth until, of course, science proves itself wrong, which is how science always is. It always says, this is what it is, until science goes, oh, no, wait, this is what it is. And then 20 years later, they're like, no, this is what it is. So it's like, okay, science, you're just as fluid as reality is at the end of the day. I full on believe in science, but I also believe that we are very young in understanding the nature of the universe. And we're just now beginning to understand how energy and waveform really works, or at least that's just now coming into the public population. But I digress a little bit. My point is that in our psychology of being human, we tend to feel like we are stuck in this me-ality. And I want to tell you, with the work I have done, the 17 years I have been broadcasting to YouTube and the internet and the universe from my bedroom alone, and sometimes the universe, that although it may appear as though it's inflexible, it is actually flexible. So we can transform our life. I am the witness of many miracles. Our guest today, Devin Dewar, is going to talk about the angels, which is the realm of Pisces, frankly, that she connects to, and how miracles really do happen in our life, that we can manifest miracles in our life. Of course, you have to do it on your own. You have to experience for yourself. You're never going to believe me. You have to live it on your own. But if you are feeling stuck, if you are feeling trapped in your me-ality, I'm here to tell you it can change. I'm a living example of that. In fact, what I just went through last year was a big transformation of my me-ality, and I never thought it would change. So this week we are facing my me-ality, or facing what it is, and the subplot is finding my faith. So the only way to change our me-ality and our reality is to go to the other side of the spiritual side of the consciousness and focus on the spirit, or focus on the faith. You must focus on the faith in order to switch gears in reality. And this is the little wizard's trick, if you will, to changing ourselves. They all say you got to have faith, but no one says, why do you have to have faith? Because we have to focus on the non-manifest. We have to focus on the spiritual pre-manifest energy. We have to focus on the energetic side of ourself that was existing before we materialized, if we're going to change the material. You can't change the material while you're focused on the material. What you give your attention to is where your energy goes. So if we're going to change the material, if we're going to metamorphosize ourselves, if we're going to elevate to a new material vibration, we have to change our focus from the material to the non-material, which is known as faith and known as spirit. And I use this analogy of a standard car, a car that has standard transmission. If you want to shift gears, you have to put in the clutch. You cannot shift gears. You'll grind the gears unless you put in the clutch. In essence, your faith is the clutch. When you address your faith, when you live in your faith, that allows you to shift gears of your physical reality. If you stay focused on the gears, you're just going to grind the gears, and you're going to grind metal, and you're going to, create unnecessary friction that tears up your engine, and you're going to feel worn down. So one of the secrets of this week, and frankly of life, is that in order to switch gears, you must pay attention to your faith. Keep your eye on your faith, keep your eye on your spirituality, and watch as reality magically transforms. If anyone has ever, if you watch, it's kind of like if you cut yourself and you have a scab, if you sit there, you can't watch it heal. But if you just have faith, it'll heal. It automatically heals. The body, physical reality, it all falls under certain rules of engagement. And so we don't have to focus on our body healing. We don't have to focus on those rules of engagement. We can focus on the faith that it will happen. Now, the key question to ask ourselves this week is, what karma with myself is over? And I invite everyone watching to really think about this. Everyone is coming to an end of a karmic cycle with themselves. This karmic cycle probably goes back to childhood. One of my karmic cycles, I'll just be honest with, is I always worried that I would lose what I built. So I have always been afraid that I'm going to lose what I built. So I have been extra hard on myself. I have been unrelenting. I have been hard on myself. I've been critical of myself. My karma with myself has been to really treat myself without compassion or mercy, because of my karma of having lost things I built in past lives, having had things taken away from me in past lives that I'm now aware of, that I'm aware of my past life structure. And as a result, I have been this cruel person to myself, believe it or not, behind the scenes. I mean, cruel in the sense of not letting myself have the sleep I need, not letting myself enjoy life, making myself work all the time. This is all prior to my Chiron return breakdown that I had last year. Once I had my Chiron return, it was a wake-up call for me that it was time to stop that. And I realized I'm not going to lose everything I built. God came in with an amazing team of practitioners. And also I have amazing viewers who kept me bookmarked on their YouTube. And holy moly, I was able to bounce back. I wasn't going to lose it. You too have some sort of a karmic story with yourself. And this full moon marks the end of that karmic story, but you want to be aware of what it is so you can say goodbye to it in the full moon. And we'll be having a special full moon broadcast, by the way, with Heather Exposito, our lead writer, this Wednesday on Serious Joy. For those who are our joiners, we have a special episode on Wednesday with Heather Exposito. So with that said, let's go through this week. Let's go through this week and what's going to happen for everyone. This week, the sun, and a week to me now is tomorrow, Saturday, to the following Friday. So that's how I look at engage the week. This week, we are going from step 3 to step 8 Virgo. So that means that we are going to begin with the philosophy and belief of what we believe we become. I believe I become a monster. I believe I become detached. I believe I become an addict. I believe I become. So we're going to realize, oh God, I become something I don't want to become. And by the way, that's everybody. Everybody aims, and then everyone gets to the destination. They're like, oh shit, that's not what I become overweight. Like I become worn down. That's just part of life. Like we figure it out. But the beginning of the week is this, Saturday and Sunday, this weekend is pretty much the wake-up call of what you have become. And it's sometimes hard because remember, Virgo is me-ality. It's very real. It seems inflexible. It seems unchangeable. Even if you gain weight or if you lose weight, you sort of think like, oh God, I'm never gonna be able to change it. But you can. You have to work with your body and be consistent. So the beginning of the week is that you realize, oh God, I've become something that I don't want to become. Or if you are just doing straight A's in your spiritual work and you're not off course at all, and if that's the case, Halamia, be a guest on my show, okay, because you're hard to find someone who doesn't have work to do, but hey, it happens, that's possible. Even then, we're going to become something greater. So even if you are satisfied with what you've become, because you're on the master path and you're no longer making junior mistakes, you still, in the point of ascension and in the point of rising to the human re-evolution that's around the corner, you still are going to become something greater as defined by the expansion of the universe and the expansion of you. And so therefore, you're going to realize you have not become everything you want to become. So we start the week going, I have become something I don't want to be, or I'm not becoming what I expect to be. And that's how the week sort of starts off, as a bit of a bummer. But then come around Monday afternoon to Tuesday, right when Uranus retrogrades, I'll talk about that. Then you will have a breakthrough and you'll realize you'll be able to accept, okay, yes, you might even argue. It's like, I become overweight, and you might go back and forth and weigh yourself on the scale like 2 days in a row and be like, I don't know, I can't believe it. I can't believe I become this. So it may actually take a few days until we get to step 6, which is Wednesday, the day of the full moon, to finally accept, okay, fine, I have a problem with this. I eat too much chocolate cake or whatever. Like I become addicted to this, or I become, lazy in that. And only once you accept what you become, which is an important note for this week, you have to accept what you become. If you deny what you have become, then you won't be able to change it because you're in denial that you're it. So you can't change something you're in denial about. And that's where being authentic and being true to you is so important. You have to be true to yourself if you're going to change who you are. You have to tell the world, you have to make a post on Facebook. You don't have to share it with anybody, but you and God, you need to know, hey, I've become this. I accept it, but I don't want to be it anymore. So we accept it. And then we have the full moon in Pisces at step 7, the grandmaster step of Pisces. Every net 7 is a grandmaster Pisces step. That's the turning of the story. That's when we go, okay, I'm letting go of this spiritual story that made me become this. I became this. I became, frigid. I became cold-hearted. I became, bitchy. I became mean, whatever. I became something to myself because of my spiritual story I had. But now I'm going to change that spiritual story. I want to move on to the next direction, the next chapter of my spiritual story. And so therefore, I want to become this. And that's the story arc of this week, that you recognize what you have become. You realize in ritual in the full moon that it's time to forgive that part of yourself. I call it the forgiving full moon. I'm going to forgive myself for having made the mistakes I've made, but I'm also grateful I had the experiences because I wouldn't have learned otherwise. And I'm going to become something else. And that's what the week ends with. Friday next week, when I come back on here at 8 degrees, that's the day we are committing to becoming someone else on the inside. And I really want to stress that this is all inner work we're talking about. Remember, we must change our inner self if we want to change our outer life. The reason why people try so hard to change their outer life and never get to change it to stick is because they tried to change their outer life without changing their inner life. So if you change your outer life and don't change your inner world, then eventually your outer world will pop back and represent a reflection of your inner world, because reality is the mirror of our inner me-ality. We have a me-ality, and reality is a mirror of that inner self. That's basically what life is. That's basically the experience of incarnation, is that you get to see in the physical world a replica of what you are in the eternal world. In heaven, we can't see what we look like. So we come down to earth to see what we look like and to see these ideas and things in play. So this week, we are moving forward to become a new me-ality on the inside. We will start to address our reality next week. So next week, we start facing our reality. If you're like, oh my God, my job sucks and my house situation is shitty and my cars, yes, but we can't get to the reality until you've faced the me-ality. So just make a bucket list of things you intend to change. Now, as you know, Mercury is retrograde. That's my way of saying it. Mercury is retrograde, which means that while we're moving forward with becoming someone new, we're thinking backwards about what we should become in the big picture. So as we are marching forward with becoming someone else new on the inside, our mind, Mercury goes from 21 to 18 degrees Virgo, which means over the course of this week, you go, I don't know what I believe about the future anymore. And then by the end of the week with Mercury at 18, you're saying, I don't know what I should do in my daily life either. So we don't know what to think. And that's okay. You're in such metamorphosis. Of course, you don't know how to navigate your world. And really, it's just a speculative, philosophical sort of thing. Mercury retrograde does mean that our hemispheres are switched as far as our dominant hemisphere. So if you're Dom logical, you go intuitive. If you're Dom intuitive, you go logical. I'm Dom intuitive. So when I dominant, that means. So when Mercury is retrograde, I'm a lot more logical. I actually get more done. I'm more efficient. I just like pound out the work and just check off the boxes, because normally I'm Dom intuitive. And so I'm usually like, so I'm usually on another planet, like la, 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 like, sort of skirting the skies, always talking to guardian angels, talking to my guides, like not looking at the road. So I'm a lot safer when Mercury's retrograde. But I'll say this, the mind this week is going to realize, okay, I don't know what to think about my future. I don't know what to think about what to do in my daily life. So we're reconsidering our options basically for the future and for daily life. Now, just because we're in Virgo doesn't mean we're not working on our heart chakra. We are. We're working on our heart chakra big time. We still have Venus retrograde in Leo. Venus stays retrograde in Leo until September 3rd. So it moves way into next week. When we do next week's show is when it goes direct. This is a change of heart that's happening. So not only are we trying to become someone new and to become this new me-ality inside of ourselves, we're having a change of heart about what we want from reality. What do I want in daily life? What matters to my heart? It's not just a change of me, it's a change of what I do with this new me-ality. What do I do with this new version of my inner operating software and system? And Venus moves from 13 to 12 degrees this week, which she's starting to really slow down. And what this means is that we're gonna change the dimension that our heart is aiming for, and we're gonna start to change what we believe in our heart. So your heart might have once believed that you couldn't be an artist for a living, that just wasn't impossible. That was impossible to make money as an artist. So your heart might have believed that you should stick with science and not focus on spirituality. Your heart might have had a lot of beliefs about life and the way life is and what's possible and what's not possible. But those heart's beliefs were based on the old karma you were born to. They were based on the old me-ality. So in the old me-ality, yes, you couldn't make a living as an artist. In the old me-ality, yes, you should get that degree in accounting and not try to be a poet or try to be, an astrologer for a living. But that was based on the old me-ality, which was based on beating yourself up, which is based on, mistakes you made in past lives, which was based on your childhood that recreated those mistakes for you so that you could work through those problems and solve those problems. So we're having a change of heart as we adjust our me-ality. We adjust what's possible in reality. So as my me-ality changes and shifts, I realize, I have new options in daily life. I'm going to withdraw my heart from this investment because that was all based on proving to the world I was right. But now in my reality that I know I'm right, I don't need to prove to the world, Jack, you know what? So there's this change of heart that's happening as you're turning the dials of your reality and deciding to tune into someone else inside yourself. Black Moon Lilith moves from 25 to 26 degrees this week, which means that we shift our fear from a fear of fate repeating itself, which is what Black Moon Lilith 25, like, oh God, I don't want to repeat my first marriage again. Oh God, I don't want something bad happening to me. I'm scared that I have this fate, that I can't get out of this fate. And it moves to 26, which means that we start to fear our commitment to something, which tells you if we're fearing our commitment to something, it means that we are ready to commit. In fact, Venus and Black Moon Lilith both change a step number on the same day, on Tuesday of this week. And that's right before the full moon Wednesday. So that tells you right there. We have a change of heart on Tuesday. We have a change of fear on Tuesday. And Tuesday is when we have step 5 to step 6 is the ruling step. That's when we figure it out and we accept our reality. So this is why the steps to me are so profound, because they reveal the timing of things. You know when consciousness is going to shift when you have more than one planet changing degrees at the same time, especially around another step number. So just as we figure out what we become, just as we accept what we become, now we change our beliefs about what our heart wants. Now we start to face fears of commitment. So that tells me that Tuesday is the big eye-opening day. That's the day when you really have an aha moment this week. Put a circle around it on your calendar. At the same time, it's important to say we have a lot of energy going on in Aries, which is based on character. Black Moon Lilith right now is at step 25. Suki asked, so I just happened to catch that. We're working on this change of heart, but we're also working on becoming a new character. The North Node in Aries for the first time since 2005. So it's been 18 years since the North Node was in Aries. The North Node is at 26 degrees and moves to 25 degrees this week. And guess when it moves to 25 degrees? On Wednesday, the day of the full moon. So that means that with the North Node at 26, you're not just committing to being this new person on the inside. You're not just changing your heart about what you want in your reality. You're aiming to become a new person. You're aiming to become a new character. I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a healer. I'm going to be a mathematician. I'm going to be an astrologer. I'm going to be the solution to the problems of me. I am the solution I was looking for. That North Node in Aries. Again, the last time we had this was in 2005. That's the last time we sort of saluted ourselves and said, let's do it. And the fact that the North Node moves from committing to a character to committing to our fate and destiny, step 25, tells me that we very much shore up our vision this week of what that outcome may look like, what we're aiming for. And with the North Node at 25 Aries, it means that we now start to aim for, okay, I'm going to be this character. I'm going to be this sensei to serious joy. What am I going to do as this character? Step 25 is like, what's my fate? Why am I this character? Why am I becoming this character? Why have I agreed with God to be this character at this time? And that happens on the full moon. So on the full moon, we start to realize, okay, it's going to happen. I'm becoming this person. But what does it mean? What was the purpose of this? Why did I go through this? There we go. Fix my shirt. So that's the North Node in Aries. We also have Chiron in Aries still at step 19. So we're still facing fears of things not working out. We're still facing times of when things didn't happen the way we wanted to. We're still addressing that karma, FYI. All right. Another area this week is Jupiter and Uranus, both in Taurus. What the headlines, though, Jupiter is helping us to, Jupiter 15 is that we're accepting a new way of manifesting life. So the Venus energy in Leo is, what does my heart want? Jupiter in Taurus is, how am I going to get it? How am I going to manifest it? Jupiter is still direct, so we're still finding new ways to manufacture, new ways to manifest, new ways to assemble, new ways to create. So we're creating these new ways. And we're going to accept those new ways. And that energy still squares Venus, which means we're going back and forth and reconciling, like, well, if my heart wants this, well, then I'll manifest it this way. Or if I'm limited in resources, maybe I can change what I want a little bit to meet the criteria of what I have, in resources. So there's this reconciliation of how to do it. We're still figuring out how we're going to do it. It's not time to do it yet because Venus is not direct, but we're definitely processing it. Uranus, though, the planet of innovation, Uranus goes retrograde this Monday at 23 degrees. So what this means is we stop innovating how high this ride goes as of Monday. It doesn't mean it's not going to go higher. It means we have climbed high enough for now. It's like, I'm going to use AI. I'm going to reinvent the wheel. I'm going to create my own community. Okay, that's enough to chew on. All right, that's enough to chew on. Uranus now retrogrades. And I thought I looked up when Uranus goes direct. I did. It's sometime in January, but I didn't write down the date. Darn it. I think it's like January 21st, if I'm not mistaken. I looked it up and didn't write it down. But it's sometime in January that Uranus goes direct. So what that says is, as of Monday, don't add any more phenomenal expectation to, the miracles that you're going to create. There's enough to work on now. Let's, work on already the goals we have set, and we'll add more goals and go higher up come January when Uranus goes direct. It also means that things will stop breaking down, and now we start to break through on solutions. All right. And sometimes Uranus forces us to grow because things break down. Then we also this week have Mars. Mars moves into Libra this week. And what that means is our ego. Mars moves into Libra on Sunday. This means that our ego is going to sort of take a back seat. Mars is in its detriment in Libra. That's sort of its kryptonite energy. It sort of softens, our ego softens, which is good. Your ego is the one that's resisting, that's fighting, that's arguing. Your ego is the one that's pushing back, that's saying no. So Mars going into Libra makes our ego suddenly be very compromising. Our ego is willing to negotiate. We're willing to use diplomacy. We're willing to see the other side of the equation, to see how our opponent is suffering, to have compassion for whatever the other side of the equation is. Opponent could also be someone you're in a relationship with. Mars is going to be in the first early degrees of Libra, which means that we're really focusing our attention on our mirage, which is our dynamic relationship with ourself. Virgo is what we have become inside of ourselves. Libra is how we relate to what we become. So I become this pain in the ass. Libra is, well, what are you going to do about it? You're going to be nice to yourself when you're being a pain in the ass? Or are you going to be kind to yourself? Are you going to be compassionate to yourself? How are you going to respond to yourself? So Mars in Libra says, it's time for a different response to ourselves. And the timing is absolutely perfect, because here we are declaring that we want to become something else. Well, you can't become something else if you're going to keep treating yourself the same crappy way. You can't become someone else on the inside if you're going to always have the same negative response or resistance or friction or whatever inside. If you keep treating yourself the same way. So Mars moving into Libra says this week, overall ego and fight energy is going to sort of fall a little bit. We're going to realize that that we don't have as much energy for the fight, which is good, because I think a lot of friction starts to fade. It also means that we're going to feel less motivated. We're going to probably need more rest. We're going to yield more than we're going to go forward. So you're going to find that you just go ahead and let someone get away with it. It's not worth bringing it up. There's all sorts of things like that. But you're also going to find that you have the energy to take your Astro to the gym, that you have the energy to stop something. And that's the other thing I should say too. Mars is also when we stop stuff. So you stop beating yourself up. You stop, skipping breakfast. You stop, putting yourself down. So Mars is when we start or stop, or when we push or resist is also Mars. So you may stop resisting something, or you may stop doing something to yourself. Those are also equal actions. But the point is that with Mars moving into Libra, you have the motivation. You may not have the motivation to mow the lawn and clean out the garage because it's in Libra, but you have the motivation to show up for yourself. Whereas just last week with Mars and Virgo, it sort of was overwhelming, but now you're like, okay, I'll do it. I have the energy to do it. So those are the major planet aspects. Now, the emotional context of this week is as follows. On Saturn Day, tomorrow, the moon is in Sagittarius. And as the sun is at 3 degrees, as you're understanding a new story, you're going to believe a new story about yourself. The moon's going to cross the galactic center tomorrow. So tomorrow is when you forge a new belief and you feel that belief. And then the moon moves into Capricorn. And the moon will be in Capricorn late Saturday and all of Sunday. So most of Saturday and all of Sunday, the moon's in Capricorn. And that means that our feelings get kind of cold. We sort of realize we kind of go cold. We sort of turn business-like. We realize that if we're gonna accept what we become, we've got to look at this professionally. We've got to not take this so emotionally. So we sort of have a tough lip. We sort of put up a tough bottom lip, so to speak. And it also means that we're not very compassionate to others. So I would try to focus on ourselves over the weekend. Try not to do stuff or be there for others if you don't have to, because you're just not going to be as compassionate as you normally are. We're all dealing with our own stuff. Then Monday, Tuesday, and half of Wednesday, the moon is in Aquarius, and this is building up now to the full moon in Pisces. And this is where we fine tune exactly the frequency of where we belong or don't belong. It's like, I belong going to the gym, but not killing myself. I belong eating right, but also getting dessert now and then. I belong. So the moon in Aquarius helps you to figure out, what does this look like? What color is this? What shade of gray is this? Is this on the passive side? Is this on the aggressive side? So all that infinite, like tiny little shades of gray or frequencies, or how often is this going to happen, or to what degree, that's all Aquarius. So we're sort of feeling out to what degree. We're feeling out really what fits with our vibe and what doesn't fit with our vibe. Then the moon goes glorious full on Wednesday night at 7 degrees. I'll show you the chart for that in our next segment. And that is ultimately where we go, okay, I'm letting the old story go. You might emotionally cry in this full moon. You might have to grieve what you've been through, especially if you've held it in and you've been tough about it. We want to let it go. We don't want to hold on that. And then moving into Friday, the next show, we then start to spiritually feel like, wow, my story is changing. And then the moon moves to Aries, and we start to feel, okay, well, if my story is changing, what am I going to do about it? What's going to be my action? What's going to be my takeaway if that's going to be the case? So that's the emotional week. We end next week with the moon in Aries, which is basically the rebirth, feeling this new version of our ego, feeling this new spectrum of ourself, and really having felt through the taking control of our life in Capricorn. What's the exact frequency in Aquarius? What's this mean spiritually with the full moon in Pisces? And then the moon dipping into Aries by next week's show, saying, okay, I am reborn. I am here to express this new becoming of my soul. As far as aspects are concerned, I've mentioned all of them this week so far. I talked about Mars moving into Libra already, what that means. I talked about Uranus going retrograde. Oh, by the way, I did write it down, just in another place. Uranus will go direct on January 27th, and it will retrograde to 19 degrees. That's as far as it'll go back. But I talk about Uranus retrograding on Monday, which is great. And I've talked about the full moon, but what I did not talk about is this week, the sun will be opposing Saturn. It directly opposes Saturn on Sunday. So on Sunday, the sun opposes Saturn. So the sun on Sunday opposes Saturn day kind of thing. And what that means is that as the sun moves past Saturn, this is our heart taking responsibility for who we're becoming. With the sun opposing Saturn. Saturn at 3 degrees, what do you believe your spiritual story is now? So Saturn at 3 is saying, what do I believe my karma is? What do I believe the story I'm leaving behind is? What karma with myself is over, says Saturn at 3 degrees. And as the sun opposes that Saturn at 3 degrees on Sunday and then goes past it, it means, well, if my karma is changing, Saturn, then I'm going to become something else, Virgo. And so really that is the fulcrum. That opposition on Sunday is really the fulcrum of the change, of us swinging the pendulum from who we have become to who we want to become. And what does this pendulum swing by? It swings by Saturn being committed to a new belief that our spiritual story has changed. And all of this that I've described is really part of what I call facing my me-ality. All right, that is the plans and transits for the week, my friends. I'm really proud of myself for making that succinct. We did that in 1 hour. I'm so happy. I'd say now it's time to go steep yourself some tea, and let's have our weekly tea time. All right, folks, welcome to our tea time. This week, we're going to be focusing on all 12 signs and what this week means for the 12 signs. But before we do, I do want to do a little bit of screen share, as I like to do, and show you the planets and what the planets are showing. I'll show you a couple of charts going on here. Oops, I'm about to click the wrong thing. I'm glad I didn't. Yay. All righty. This is our poster for the week and our special guest, Devin Dewar here. So the two charts I want to show going on this week. The first is Sunday, August 27th. As you can see here, apexing at 4:20 a.m. This is actually when Saturn will oppose the sun. You can see the Saturn at 3 degrees 50 minutes, the sun at 3 degrees 50 minutes Virgo. This opposition is the opposition of I'm going to commit to a new belief, step 3, about my spiritual story with myself, my spiritual karma with myself. Why am I forced to commit now? Because my heart is in opposition. The sun is our heart. My heart's in opposition. My heart doesn't know who or what to become. And so in this opposition to Saturn, we realize, oh, I'm going to believe that I can become somebody different because I no longer believe my karma is the same way. So there's a change of karma, which leads to a change of who we become. You can see Mars. This happens right at Mars at 29 degrees 52 minutes of Virgo. So this opposition happens right when we're ready to push the envelope of reality. Remember, everything beyond step 11 in Virgo is reality. Everything under step 11 is our me-ality. Another interesting thing about this moment, Venus is at 13 degrees. So we're at the same time changing the dimension of what we love. Like, I'm not going to love and I think that comes from changing the perspective. So if you say, I'm no longer going to be hard on myself, Saturn, which means I'm going to become a nice guy in my me-ality, then how I love changes dimension. If I'm going to be a nice guy in me-ality, well, then I don't have to love from the perspective of being a victim, or love from the perspective of abandonment, or love from the perspective of being wounded. So the perspective that my heart takes on the world changes when I change my spiritual story, which then in turn changes who I become on the inside. So ultimately, this opposition is a turning point, and you then go through a revolution of who you're going to become when the sun hits 4 degrees, which is the next day on Monday. Monday's a little bit of a rocky day. I call it cloudy and meh is what I say. And then the other chart to show is, of course, the full moon. It apexes at 9:35 p.m. Eastern time here in the United States. And looking at the moon very closely here, the moon apex is at 7 degrees 25 minutes. So step 7. 7 is the Grandmaster step of Pisces. When you have a Grandmaster step event, it means that you change the definition of that consciousness. So the consciousness gets changed. If fundamentally changed from its core. So the full moon was at 8 degrees 8 degrees Pisces, for instance. We'd be committing to a moderation or a modification of it, but we wouldn't be changing it from the ground up, or from the base up, or from the seed up, or you could say from heaven down. But the fact that it's at 7, heaven, Pisces is the number 7, tells us that this is from heaven. This goes all the way back to heaven, that we're switching our spiritual timeline. And then, of course, 7 Virgo is the embodiment of that Virgo. So the embodiment of Christ consciousness being creation in spiritual manifest form, we embody our incarnation with this new story. So you could say that this full moon is us downloading our new spiritual story. And you could say that the moon in Pisces is the software, and the sun in Virgo is the hardware, is the computer. So this is a major download. Notice that the moon conjoins Saturn at 3 degrees. So this new spiritual story is intimately tied to the fact that we are taking responsibility to change our story, our spiritual story, or our spiritual timeline. If you prefer the word timeline, I'm fine with that. But this full moon is a timeline shift, a spiritual timeline shift. And Neptune, way up, retrograde at 26 Pisces, says, because this timeline shifts with my story with myself, well, then my destiny is now being committed to a new direction. 26 net 8 is a commitment. So that means I'm therefore committing to a new destiny. Change my inner story, and my outer world destiny ends up getting changed. And I think that's the most, I mean, Black Moon Lilith is up 26. We're facing fears of commitment of our heart. Mercury is we're rethinking what we're going to manifest in daily life. Mars at 2 degrees means we're facing our feelings about ourselves at this moment. So it's because of Mars at 2 and the moon at conjunct Saturn, this could definitely be a tear jerker full moon. This could be a full moon where you have to do some release, where you have to cry. Venus at 12 means we're changing our belief about what we should create. So this is a very transformative full moon. And notice Mercury is now is still caught in this grand trine in Earth. So this is going to manifest. These changes will happen, as long as you make that shift in your consciousness on the inside. So with that said, today for all 12 signs, let me just get my things in order here. There's a lot of moving around of windows when you do digital TV here, Zoom television. For all 12 signs today, I'm going to talk about 4 things like I like to do. 1, the sun in Virgo, where are you becoming a new me-ality? That's the first thing. So for all 12 signs, where are you becoming a new me-ality? The full moon in Pisces, where you are releasing the old karmic story, where you're going to release the old karmic story, where you're going to let go of the way you used to treat yourself and the karmic routines of treating yourself, and then embrace the new spiritual story. So what that full moon will mean for you. Then I'm going to speak to Uranus and the Uranus retrograde. And that Uranus retrograde means that you no longer have to keep innovating this part of your life that I'm about to talk about. You can give it a break and sort of go with what you know so far until January 27th when it goes direct again. And then I'll speak to Mars in Libra, which means where are you facing your mirage? Where are you changing your behavior with yourself? Where are you finding balance? Where are you yielding and needing to yield in life a little bit as well? And of course, I will start with the Aries, but first I'm going to take a little drink. You'd think I drink on the interstitials, but I always forget. Starting with Aries. I got to do it out like a baseball caller. Aries, home run. Aries, you are changing your me-ality with your health and your body image. So you're changing how you operate inside. You are becoming someone new on the inside. Now, another way to look at this is the moment you live in. So if you live in grief, or you live in despair, or you live in competition, or you live in aggression, it could also be that you're changing how you live on the inside as well. So you are going to be creating a new me-ality with how you live on the inside, a new me-ality of how you relate to your health, a new me-ality of the energy that you live in day to day inside of yourself. Every day you're depressed, every day you're happy, every day you're something. Okay, so it may not be health, it may be energy and tone. That full moon in Pisces is literally a change of faith in yourself. So the 2 different spiritual timelines are based on how you had faith in yourself or not, or how you dealt with fear or not. So the old story might have been that you didn't have faith in yourself, and the new story is that you do. Or the old story might have been you had faith in your athletic ability, but you didn't have faith in your, mathematic ability. And now you're going to have faith in mathematics as well. So it could be a complete faith in yourself. It could be a fractional faith in yourself. But the Pisces full moon means we're getting rid of the old story of where I didn't have faith in myself in these areas, and I'm going to become the embodiment in my body. I'm going to embody this new faith. That's the full moon event for you. Uranus retrograde means that when it comes to money, abundance, passive income, creating the business of a lifetime, you can stop innovating there for now and fill in the gaps, fill in the blanks, go back and start to fill in the information, the research, the experimentation necessary to make your current ideas for money and abundance work. So it's like you've grown enough when it comes to money and abundance. Of course, you want to make more money and have more abundance, but your strategy, your actual business practice, what you do, you can take a break now and fill in those gaps. And then Mars in Libra, your ruling planet in your opposite sign, does mean that Aries will be a bit deflated for the next 6 weeks. Mars stays in a sign for about 6 weeks. So you're not going to have the same oomph that you normally have because it's your anti-birthday and your ruling planet's in your anti-sign. But it does mean that when it comes to your ego and your responses, you're now going to focus on a different version of yourself. You're going to focus on responding to yourself in different ways, basically you're going to have to treat yourself differently to become this new moment inside yourself. You're going to treat yourself differently according to your new faith, and treat yourself differently in order to fill in the gaps with your abundance and manifestation. All right, Taurus. Tauruses are experiencing a new me-ality when it comes to loving themselves. And I have to tell you, when the sun first went to Virgo, I got a little mopey. My heart was like, I realized that my heart revealed to me areas that my heart was not happy with how things have become. I'm not happy with, certain things. That's a lot because I personally put my heart on the back burner and, for other things. I don't always directly try to peel my heart. So I have not become as self-loving as I want to become. So Tauruses are realizing it's time to become more self-loving. It's time to be more in love with your inner child, to bring your inner child to the table. The full moon means that your karmic story has to do with the kind of friend you've been to yourself. So Pisces, for you, your karma is all based on how good of a friend you are to yourself. And notice I say friend, not parent, not babysitter, friend. If I'm going to be a good friend to myself, I'm going to balance work life. If I'm going to be a good friend to myself, I'm not going to take it personally when something happens. If I'm going to be a good friend to myself, I'm going to see the big picture and not get caught in the details. So the full moon is saying you're going to let go of a bad friendship with yourself, or a not good enough friendship. We don't have to call it bad, but it wasn't what it could be. And we're going to embrace a new spiritual story where you are a better friend to yourself in different ways so that you can be that friend to the world. And ultimately, I think Tauruses tend to be friends to the world before themselves. That's one of the mistakes they make. Uranus retrograde now in your sign, Taurus, means that you're going to be given a break on developing your character and your big picture operational changes. So it's like you've got enough on your plate. There's enough on your wish list for how your character is going to change. You don't have to create a new character for now. Just fill in the gaps with all the goals you currently have. By the way, character is also your health, your fitness, your image. So there's not a lot of image change that needs to happen. Go with what you've already planned to do with your image and what you plan to do with your character, and fill in those gaps until January 27th. And then Mars moving into Libra for you is a new behavior with your health or your body. Okay, so it's time to now respond to your health differently. It's time to be there for nutrition differently. It's time to respond to the moment differently. So normally, if you used to be bored in the moment and you used to go eat when you were bored, let's change that response. So you're changing your response to your me-ality. You're changing your response to your health. You're changing your response to your body and upgrading that to meet probably this new inner self-love, this new inner child that you're letting become more a part of your life. Geminis, I'm going to take a little drink. Geminis are becoming the way they feel about themselves is becoming new. So they're going to become a new feeling about themselves. I used to feel like a loser. I used to feel like the last, always left behind. I used to feel abandoned. I used to feel this way. And Geminis become these feelings. It's funny because Geminis are intellectual people, but they really become their feelings. What you see is what they're feeling. You're not seeing what they're thinking. You're seeing what they're feeling when you see a Gemini, which is interesting. And Cancers are the reverse. So Gemini and Cancers have the reverse in that. So you're going to become a new feeling on the inside, and you're going to become something. You're going to become different when it comes to how you nurture yourself and how you treat your feelings. So you're becoming a new emotional person, basically. The full moon in Pisces says that you're going to shift your spiritual story around self-discipline. The old you may have been very laxed about health. The old you might have been very laxed about career. The old you might have been very passive about your relationships. But now you're going to develop a new self-discipline, and that's the birth of the new spiritual story. The new spiritual story is that there's a new sheriff in town in your life, and there's a new self-discipline that you're going to live by. And because of the new self-discipline, your long-term goals can change, which we'll talk more about next week, but not until this new self-discipline spiritual story is in place. Uranus retrograde means that you're no longer going to have to innovate your faith in God, which is really a blessing, because when you're innovating faith, it usually means that you have more and more piled up onto you that you're having to pray about. And so you don't have to innovate your faith so much. you can hold off now. The faith you have is enough to last until January 27th. That means that you don't have to change your spiritual relationship to God or the angels, but fill out what you've already learned. So if you started praying to Archangel Michael, make that a daily practice or make that a weekly practice. But I wouldn't try a new angel per se right now. I would focus on the ones you've already tried to have contact with, or I'd focus on the spiritual goals that you currently have on your plate. Let's not adding any more spiritual goals to your plate until January 27th. Mars in Libra says that you're going to change your behavior and how you treat your inner child. So it's now time to love your inner child in a different way. It may be time to stop picking on your inner child or to stop abandoning your inner child. So remember, Mars is start and stop. So maybe you stop some things that you've been doing to yourself, or neglecting yourself, or depriving your inner child, or it could be gluttony. You could be just pigging out. You've been doing nothing but playing like Pinocchio on Jackass Island, and you need to stop playing and balance out some other responsibilities. After all, that full moon in Pisces says there's a shift in self-discipline. But overall, it's time to really activate how you respond to your inner child. Cancers. Cancers are becoming a new mindset on the inside. So it's funny, like I said, Geminis, what we end up seeing is how they feel. Cancers, what we end up seeing is how they think, because what they become is their mindset. That's what they become. So in your case, Cancer, what you think is what you are. You think you're a loser, you're a loser. You think you're weak, then you're weak. You think that you're tired, then you're tired. So as soon as a Cancer's mind encodes their emotional field, and that's how thoughts and feelings bounce off each other, thoughts create a structure, emotions will bend under that structure or reflect those thoughts. So if you have a bad attitude, you feel bad with that attitude. So you're going to become a new inner attitude. You're going to become a new inner presumption about yourself, a new inner opinion of yourself. That's another way of looking at it, that you're going to become a new opinion of yourself. And this new opinion of yourself is your liberating agent from the past. The full moon in Pisces means that the spiritual story that's changing is your belief of yourself. Belief in yourself in the sense of, in the old story, you didn't believe you were capable of this, or you didn't believe you were worthy of that, or you didn't believe it was possible for you to achieve something you want to achieve. So most likely the old spiritual story was a lack of belief, or a lack of consistent belief, or a false belief, that you believe something that was false. You believe what your parents told you and you realize they were wrong, you're right. So the shift of the full moon is that you're now going to have your new spiritual story is based on a new belief about yourself on the inside. You have this new belief about who you are and what you're capable of. Uranus retrograde means that when it comes to your innovation in society, you can hold off at this level until January 27th. So it's like, if you decided, okay, I'm going to open up my own store out on Main Street. Okay, we don't need to add any more to that list. Flush out opening that store. If you said, I'm going to have a doctor, I'm going to become a doctor in society. Okay, let's not add on a specialist like surgery. Let's just keep it at MD and flush it out to the 27th. So whatever you've aimed to be in society, hold off on that and flush it out now until the 27th. And then Mars in Libra, which is interesting, is that you're going to now start to respond differently to your own feelings about yourself. So if you have sad feelings, well, let's respond a different way than we have before. If you have good feelings, let's support those good feelings with our response to yourself. So Mars in Libra means that your ego is responsive to your feelings. That also means that, for the next 6 weeks, Cancers are prone to get pissed off and to get angry over their feelings, or to get jealous, or some of those other dark side of Mars sort of emotions. So you are, if the feeling is sort of dark and the dark side of the moon, or the backside of the moon, as they now put it, then you might find that your ego is overly, reactive than it should be. Your ego can get kind of inflamed. So use your ego energy to nurture yourself through these different changes. Try not to react to feelings instead of in a negative way, or act out. Instead, reply inward and nurture. Leos. Leos are becoming someone new when it comes to their self-worth. So your value of yourself is changing. You used to value yourself because you were cool and you were the best dancer in the disco. You used to value yourself because, you were best known for something in the world. But remember that Venus retrograde is changing who your character is. So because your character is changing, what you become, the value you become is changing. Your worth is changing. Your self-worth is changing. So you're going to become something else when it comes to why you're valuable. You're going to change your investments in yourself to something different. So this is about becoming a new self-worth. And obviously it'd be a greater self-worth. It may also be becoming someone new when it comes to personal debt. And debt is something like where you feel like you owe the world. I owe the world an apology. I owe the world proving to the world I'm this. I owe the world, showing an example of that. And you might remove some of your debt where you no longer have to prove to the world that you're valuable in certain areas. So you're becoming this new self-worth. You're becoming a new self-esteem. The full moon in Pisces says for that to happen, your spiritual story of trusting yourself is going to change. So that means that in the old spiritual story, you didn't trust yourself out all night, or you didn't trust yourself with a full bottle of whiskey, or you didn't trust yourself, to not mess up your job at work. And the change now in the full moon is that part of me that didn't trust myself, that's now gone. I now trust myself in certain areas. That's the new spiritual story. The new spiritual story is based on a new trust in yourself. And that new trust in yourself means that you become a new value to yourself. Your self-esteem rises to a new height because you now have this new trust in yourself. And some of it is spiritual trust, by the way. It's Pisces. It doesn't mean it has to be proven. It's that it's sensed and known. The Uranus retrograde is that when it comes to your career and your legacy, you can stop adding things onto that list. So whatever you have as far as your list of career legacy, you can hold there, and you're going to fill out all the details. You're going to, do all the research, do all the investigation, do all the paperwork too, necessary, but don't add anything on to your title or to your intentions, or make any other public announcements until January 27th. That's when you're ready to take your career to the next level. And Mars in Libra means that your response to your thoughts has got to change now. So, this makes sense. You're changing your character with Venus retrograde. You're changing your self-worth with the sun in Virgo. So obviously you can't think the same way about yourself. You can't think of yourself in the same terms. So you're going to find that your ego is a little combative with certain thoughts about yourself. You might get angry with certain thoughts about yourself. If someone calls you a name that you were called as a child or called growing up, that might also trigger your ego. So your ego is very triggered by the way you talk to yourself and the way you think of yourself. But it's now time to act on a positive attitude with yourself and avoid arguments. You are argumentative for the next 6 weeks, Leo. Virgo, happy birthday, Virgos. Virgos are becoming a new behavior to themselves. So what that means is the way you treat yourself, Virgo, is who you become. So if a Virgo is a sad sack, a Virgo treats himself like a sad sack. If a Virgo is hyper, anal retentive about things, that means that you treat yourself with this hyper anal retentive attention. Whatever it is that you become in life is a reflection of the way you're treating yourself in private. So how you treat yourself, your behavior to yourself, it's time to become a new person to yourself. Be your own hero, be your own healer, be your own therapist, be your own support. It's time to be positive, to become a positive influence in your own life, to become a positive example in your own life. Be the example that you want to see now, Virgo, and you'll see things play out in a great way. So you're becoming a new behavior of yourself. Now, the full moon in Pisces means that the spiritual story that's changing is your marriage, or you could say your marriage vows. So the old spiritual story, you're only vowing to yourself and being there for yourself. It's like if you think of your vows like till death do you part, in sickness and in health. Well, maybe your vows to yourself were, I'm not going to be there for myself if I make a mistake. I'm not going to be there for myself if I marry the wrong person. So you weren't either not living up to your vows to yourself, like you made the vows and you didn't live up to them. You cheated on yourself, or your vows were crummy vows, or you didn't even have any vows. You're just winging it the whole time. That could also be the other possibility of it too. You've just been winging it. So it's time now to change your spiritual story by changing your vows to yourself. That's the new spiritual story of Virgo. Uranus retrograde means that when it comes to your life purpose, you can take a break. Okay. So Virgos are like, I'm the next great cook, and I'm the next great inventor of this, and I'm going to be here to show the world that, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. Give it a break. We have enough on that list there. You don't have to keep upping the ante to what you're going to be. Let's fill in the blanks now of all the things you've already claimed that you're going to be, other things you've claimed you want to achieve in life. So don't add any more life achievements until January 27th. Okay. With Mars in Libra, it means you have to respond to self-worth issues differently now. So when I found out I owed somebody a favor, I used to get sad, or I used to get angry. Or when I found out I didn't have the courage to do something, or the self-worth to do something, I would pick on myself. I'd be mean to myself. So this goes in concert, the way you respond to yourself, it goes in concert with that you're going to become a new response to yourself, that you're going to have new marriage vows to yourself. So of course, the way you respond to your self-worth has to be different too, or the way you respond to self-worth issues also must be different. But you are prone to anger or outbursts when it comes to the ideas of money, debt, or self-esteem for the next 6 weeks. And I didn't drink on you this time. I drink on Libra. Libra. Libra is becoming new faith in themselves. So your faith in yourself is becoming new. You have a new faith in yourself that is being reinvented. This could also mean you are becoming fearless or less fearful. Fearless is a hard one to get. Let's say less fearful. But you are becoming this new expression of faith, basically. And this also means that you are officially you have a spiritual chapter changing for a couple of reasons. Because you are the opposite of Aries, you are caught in the purebred stream of, being the first ones to do something. So you're changing your spiritual story on a very profound level versus the other signs. It might be a little bit more of a just one chapter. You could say Libras might be changing their whole spiritual book. You might be going to a whole new Bible, if you will, about how life ought to be. So it's a whole new spiritual story. It's not an additional chapter, it's not the next chapter. It's a whole new story of faith in yourself. This is a whole new day for Libra. So this is a big deal. Just like for Aries, it's also quite a big deal in that sense. Now this big change of faith, the full moon says that the difference between the two stories is actually how you lived in the moment. So in the old spiritual story, you lived in depression, or you lived in fear, or you lived in anxiety, or you lived in a sick body at dis-ease, or you lived malnutrition, or you lived overeating or undereating. So the way you lived is what actually flips the channel of your spiritual story. If you want to move to the next spiritual story, then you must live in the moment differently. Your me-ality must be different. Your approach to your body must be different. Your approach to your health must be different. That's the change. Now, with Uranus stationing retrograde, you don't have to worry about building any more trust, and you don't have to worry about facing any more big life changes. You've got enough life changes on the table now. Let's flush through and follow through all these life changes you've already proposed since Uranus went direct. Let's not add any more onto the plate. Let's give it a break with life changes. When I say life changes, I mean married to divorced, moving your house, coming, opening up, coming out of the closet. These are big life changes where all sorts of things have to change. Those big changes, just a hold until January 27th. You've already declared enough changes need to happen. There's plenty of work to do with the changes. With Mars moving into Libra, that's your sign, it's now time to respond to yourself differently. And basically the way to look at this is, now that you have new faith, you got to treat yourself as though you have that faith. So if you have faith, you don't pick on yourself, you don't doubt yourself, you don't act out, you don't act in, you don't cause trouble for yourself. If you have faith in yourself, you don't disrupt. Your behavior is supportive, not disruptive. You are your best friend and your best ally because you have faith. There's nothing to worry about anymore. So your behavior with yourself needs to change. I will say that your ego is going to be short-tempered. You're going to be quick to anger, a little too anxious, impatient, and be careful with physical activity for the next 6 weeks. With Mars in your sign, there's a tendency to overdo it. Don't overdo it in the gym. Don't try to jump too far. Take your time, footprint after footprint, be careful, because that extra Martian energy is going to sort of feel like 20 cups of coffee. And it's going to amp you up a bit. Scorpios are becoming a new friend to themselves. So they're defining what friendship is now to themselves. And that means to be a fair friend, to be a responsive friend, to show up for yourself as you promised, to follow through with your promises to yourself, to give yourself a break, to not take things so personally. It's time to become your own best friend. Okay. And that is necessary. Now, Scorpios tend to put themselves aside for the people they're committed to. So to some degree, this means putting yourself first, period. Just simply putting yourself first. That's part of it. But also it means becoming a better friend to yourself. If I'm a really good friend to myself, I'll go ahead and wait till tomorrow to do that. If I'm really a good friend to myself, I'll go ahead and say no to those people. Even though I'm letting them down, I'm showing up for myself. So you're becoming a better friend to yourself. The full moon in Pisces is the actual shift of story. And that shift of story has to do with your inner child. So the old Scorpio story was their old relationship to their inner child. That maybe child was damaged or abandoned or abused growing up, or, treated unfairly growing up. You're pretty much getting rid of your childhood dark story, whatever that happens to be, whatever you don't like with your childhood. It could also be, a story where you were a failed artist. I was a failed musician or a failed artist, or I'm not as creative as I wish I was. So it could be a change of story of your creative potential as well. You could be thinking about love stories, but let's not go there first. Love story is reality. It's not me-ality. The me-ality part of this is your own connection to your inner child. So the full moon is a shift of your self-love, a shift of your inner child perspective. Uranus retrograde means when it comes to challenges in your partnerships and marriages, it's time for a break. So the people you're in love with, the people you're committed to, they're not going to add any new challenges to the table with Uranus retrograde, but you will have the old challenges come back in different ways. So you're going to flush through the old challenges. You're going to work on the old challenges. You're going to fix the old challenges and address the old challenges, but you're not going to have brand new ideas come up. So like, oh, now my partner's drinking every day. There won't be any, I don't think, new problems in the partnership, but the old problems do need to be addressed until January 27th. With Mars in Libra, it's now time to have a different response to your faith in yourself, or a different response to fear. So you used to run away from fear, might have been fight or flight. Maybe you got angry when you're afraid. Maybe you hit the gym and ended up injuring yourself by working out too much when you had fear. Whatever that response to yourself around faith issues needs to now be in alignment with the new inner child relationship, needs to be in alignment with being a friend to yourself. You want your response to questions of faith to be in alignment with this new friend you are becoming to yourself. Sagittariuses are becoming a new self-discipline. So Sagittarius and their self-discipline, Virgo rules your self-discipline. So you're very meticulous. You know darn well what you need to do. But Sagittarius are ruled by Jupiter, so they tend to sign up for too much. And then they have incapability of following through because they have the discipline, but they've said yes to too many things. So it's now time to become a different type of self-disciplined person, whether that means that you have lists, or that you put less on your plate, or you take it step by step, but you're becoming a different type of self-discipline. Maybe you've been, you cracked the whip and been hard on yourself to be disciplined, and now you're going to take the gentle approach, but you're becoming a different self-disciplinarian inside of yourself. Now, the full moon means that your spiritual story that changes are your feelings about yourself. So I used to feel I was a loser. I used to feel I was alone. I used to feel like I was a loner. I used to feel that I was incapable. I can come up with a million adjectives of the way you used to feel. But the difference is the new spiritual story is you feel different about yourself than you did in the past. And that past could be childhood. That past could be before your Saturn return. That past could be before your second Saturn return. That past could be before your third Saturn return. Okay. So it doesn't matter how old you are, but your feelings about yourself is really the switch that flips the two karmic stories. And the new karmic story is that you feel differently about yourself. And of course, by feeling differently about yourself, you discipline yourself differently because your discipline is coming from a different emotional foundation inside yourself. Now, Uranus retrograde means that when it comes to your lifestyle and your performance, God is not going to keep adding new things onto your workload. So your workload, your daily lifestyle complexity, your daily lifestyle demand for efficiency, to get blood from a turnip, basically, that is on hold. You can now flush through with all the responsibilities you've already agreed to, all the lifestyle changes you've already committed to. You can follow through with all those lifestyle and work and daily detail changes and keep just flushing them out until January 27th. That's when you'll now begin to integrate and innovate these lifestyle changes to a new level. And Mars in Libra means that it's now time to respond to your friendship inside yourself differently. So this may mean that, I think Sagittarius are really good friends to themselves. They have Libra in their 11th house. So they're very friendly. They're very personable and they get along with themselves very well. But I think that sometimes they're a bad friend to themselves because they're trying to be such a good friend to the world. So I think sometimes Sagittarius throw themselves under the bus because they're trying to be there for everyone else on the bus. And so Mars in Libra says, okay, if your feelings about yourself have changed and you don't have to add more onto your lifestyle and you're becoming a different self-discipline, well, then let's go ahead and treat our inner friendship differently. Let's go ahead and respond to our inner friendship in a different perspective as well. So Sagittarius are becoming a better friend to themselves. And by the way, you're going to be impatient, a little testy, a little abrasive for how, as far as, Sagittarius aren't very abrasive at all, but in the context of Sag, probably a bit more abrasive, short-tempered, lacking patience with friends and society and the world in general. A lot of Sagittarius honking at the green light, I think, basically in their car. Capricorns are becoming a new belief in themselves. So this is really becoming a new story that you have with yourself. So this is basically you saying, I used to believe that I was this, but now I'm becoming a believer of that. So I'm now becoming a believer that I'm a musician. I'm becoming a believer that I'm capable. I'm becoming a believer that it's possible. So you're becoming this believer basically about yourself, whereas before you weren't really a believer. And it could be believing in something new, or it could be believing in something that you've always tried to believe in that you haven't been able to pull off. The full moon in Pisces means that the story change for you has to do with the way you think of yourself. In the old karmic story, you thought of yourself this way. In the new karmic story, you think of yourself that way. So the full moon is putting down the old thinking, the old attitude, the old snarky, self-talk, and adopting a more compassionate, more forgiving, more accepting part of yourself. And that's the forgiving part of yourself. Actually, I forgot to talk about this. This whole chapter is this full moon is a forgiving full moon. We're letting ourselves off the hook for that old version of ourselves. And so you're forgiving yourself for the way you've treated yourself in your mind. The Uranus retrograde says your golden egg, your personal dreams, the things your heart is aiming for, the things your heart's dreaming about. You've got enough on your plate right now. You don't have to add more to that wish list. Let's fill in that list. Let's go shopping. Let's follow through with what we've already committed to in our heart already. And Mars in Libra says that it's now time to respond to your self-discipline differently. So if you used to be a taskmaster by beating yourself up, or by pressuring yourself, or by racing to the end, however it is that you discipline yourself, this now has to be in concert with the new talking to yourself nicely. It has to be in concert with the fact that you believe in yourself. So therefore, you're going to respond to your self-discipline different ways. So your response to your self-discipline needs to be more balanced, more gentle, and taking on this new way you think about yourself on the inside, incorporating that new self-talk on the inside. Aquarius. Aquariuses are becoming a new trust in themselves, which is a big deal. You're becoming a new way of trusting yourself. You're becoming a new strength in trusting that you can pull something else off. It means you're also becoming trusting to yourself. Now you're becoming secure with yourself. That's another way of putting it. So you're becoming more secure. You're becoming more trusting. You can count on yourself more than you ever have before. The full moon in Pisces says that the change of your karmic story is the change of your self-worth. So in the old karmic story, you felt you were worth this. In the new karmic story, you feel you're worth that. So it's time to forgive that you didn't have faith in yourself. It's forgive the fact that you didn't value yourself. Forgive the fact that you let yourself off the hook, that you didn't let yourself off the hook before, and now let yourself off the hook. So you're being forgiving of the old self-esteem issues and forgiving of your old debts to mankind. You felt indebted to the world for this or indebted to the world for that. The Uranus retrograde, your ruling planet, means when it comes to home, family, foundation, emotional security, God's not going to pile on anymore when it comes to that. So you're not going to have more trouble with your homeowners association. You're not going to have more noise from your neighbor. It's going to be the same stuff you've already known you have to face in those areas, but God won't put anything new on your plate when it comes to those categories. So when it comes to home, family, foundation, you have added enough goals on your plate. You can now settle in with what you've done so far until January 27th, which is right before your birthday or on your birthday. Mars in Libra says that you must respond to believing in yourself differently now. You must act as though you do have belief in yourself. You must act in your beliefs of yourself as if you do trust yourself. You must act in your beliefs in yourself as if your self-worth is the new high self-worth. So, all of our actions in life are based on whether we believe in ourselves or not. And the way we behave is based on whether or not we have belief or don't have belief. So it's now time to coordinate your behavior along the lines of believing in yourself fully. And with Mars in this space for the next 6 weeks, you're going to be very aggressively learning, absorbing information. It's a good time for travel in this next 6 weeks. It's a good time for study. You're going to find that you're very impatient and you want to know the knowledge now, and that you're a little aggro when it comes to wisdom right now, and maybe a little defensive if someone says you don't know what you're talking about. You're going to be like, oh, hell yes, I do. And then finally, the Pisces. Pisces are becoming a new marriage to themselves. So it's time to become a new partner to yourself, basically. This is different than friendship. This is partnering. This is your personal vow. So it's time to commit to new vows to yourself in sickness and in health, in alcoholism and in sobriety, like all those different potentials that you will be there for yourself. It's time to become a new partner to yourself and partner with yourself for your success. I think for Pisces, this is a very big distinction between their two worlds. The full moon in Pisces means that the change between your two spiritual chapters or spiritual levels is in the old level, you treated yourself a certain way. In the new level, you treat yourself a new way. And with this new self-treatment, the full moon in Pisces, comes new vows to yourself that you will be there for yourself under new terms and new conditions. So you could say you are becoming or creating new terms and conditions of your partnership to yourself because you are changing the way you treat yourself or the way you respond to yourself. Perhaps you didn't respond to yourself nicely, but now you will respond to yourself nicely. Uranus retrograde says that your big ideas that you have for the future and your big plans for the future, you got enough on your plate, buddy. You don't need to add any more plans. You need to complicate your plans. You don't need to, add anything new or, explore anything new. What you already think as far as your plans are concerned, that could also be plans for intellectual property. Those plans are good enough for now. Flush those out until January 27th. Okay, so flush those out. And then Mars in Libra means that it's time to respond to your trust issues with yourself differently. So maybe it's time to give yourself the benefit of doubt. Maybe it's time to assume success before fearing failure. Maybe it's time to not knee-jerk react if you think you're starting to steer off the road or outside your lane. So the way you respond to trust issues, the way you respond to insecurity, this now needs to be updated in accordance with the new marriage vows. Your response to your trust issues needs to be updated in accordance with your new behavior with yourself. And you also need to respond to yourself so that you can fulfill these big picture plans that Uranus has created in your mind. So when it comes to trust issues, respond differently in these areas. Now, with Mars in Libra for the next 6 weeks, you are going to be a bit more randy than usual. So you're going to probably be craving intimacy. You're also going to be a lot more defensive of your space and boundaries, and probably more touchy if someone crosses a line. If someone crosses a line with you, you're going to find your ego flares up really quickly. So you want to temper your ego and just count to 10, I'd say, before you respond. All right. That is the 12 signs and our tea time function. Now we're going to take a little intermission, my friend. And then following that, I'll have a summary of how to catch me on social media and parts of our show. But we're going to replay the Zodiac Weather as our intermission. And when I come back, I will have Angel Intuitive Devin Dewar. Stay tuned. This week's Zodiac Weather is from Saturday, August 26th to Friday, September 1st, 2023. Looking at your weekend forecast, this weekend is all about self-discovery and realizing that you are not who you seek to become. Let's drill down. On Saturday, it's sunny and clear-cut. Step 3 means Jupiter rules the day, and so this will be the day that's philosophical. You'll be exploring who you have become and looking for theories of who you want to become. On Sunday, it's sunny and shifting. This is an unpredictable day. We move from step 3 to step 4, so it goes from Jupiter to Uranus. Expect the unexpected, as the old relationship to yourself will break down, leaving room for who you want to become. And with the sun opposing Saturn, you're ready to take responsibility for the old karma with yourself. Moving on to your 5-day weekday moodcast. This week is really about the breakthrough of who you want to become and committing to that new person. Let's drill down. On Monday, it's cloudy and meh. Step 4 means Uranus rules the day today. Expect the unexpected. You're basically innovating who you become on the inside. And with the moon moving into Aquarius, you're feeling the electricity of change. And ironically, it's on this day that Uranus stations retrograde in Taurus. On Tuesday, it's going to be cloudy and rather spaced out. You'll be in your head. It's a Mercury-ruled day. You'll be all over the map and basically reframing the way you think of yourself and reframing your potential to become someone else. On Wednesday, it's sunny and cool. Step 6 means Venus rules the day. It's a day of creativity, resting and receiving. You are accepting the fact that you're becoming someone new. And the day tops off with a full moon in Pisces at 9:35 p.m. Eastern Time, USA. Then on Thursday, it's foggy but faithful. Step 7 means Neptune rules the day. This is the aftermath of the full moon. You'll be in and out as far as focus is concerned, but you will find new faith in who you become. And then on Friday, it's sunny and clear. Step 8 means Saturn rules the day. This will be a serious day of taking responsibility for your life. You're committing to a new me-ality, and when the moon moves into Aries later on that day, you'll be full. Hello, friends. We are back. I am very honored to introduce to you a good friend of mine, a spiritual colleague, a earthbound colleague, the amazing angel intuitive, Devin Dewar. Hi, Devin.
Hi, Christopher. Hi, everybody out there. I am so excited to be here. Very nice to connect with you this way.
We're excited to have you. I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. And when I say this moment, I mean the Earth in Pisces, the excuse to talk about angels, and really your craft and what you do. You know, interestingly enough, I'll just sort of start out here. When I started down this path of astrology, I wasn't sure if I believed in the angels or not. Like, I heard about it through my Catholic childhood, and I heard about it, you know, obviously growing up. all the pictures on the internet always seem kind of hokey. All the angels are like all ripped, muscular, and like, I mean, like, like they switch between male and female, which now makes more sense in our modern society. Tell me first to start off, I work with you at Serious Joy. We'll talk about where you work with us, but how did you get involved with the angels? When did you become a believer, and why?
I will say that, I was raised with a Christian background. I was raised Episcopalian, so we were taught there were angels, but it was much more of an arm's length approach, not something where you were able to directly connect and ask for their help. It was kind of like you said your prayer to God, and then you waited to see if God sent the angels to help. But I had a grandmother that was a fantastic mentor to me. And when I was 19 years old, I had an experience where I actually saw angels. And I didn't know what to do with it other than share it with my parents first, because I had forgotten about this. But my grandmother had had an experience as well years before, and she had always talked about it to me. And she gave me my very first like guardian angel pin, and she would always talk about, well, it's the angels. And she just would coach me through the way that God is everywhere and we can connect with God. We can connect with God's angels. She also taught me about connecting with God through animals. And she would always say, what is dog spelled backwards? So she was an enormous spiritual coach to me. And I felt very safe sharing my experience with her when I was younger. And she said to trust it. And as I went through different challenges through my life, I realized that you don't have to wait for there to be some big event in your life to have help from the angels. They're always there helping you, and that's their job essentially, and they want to do their job. So over the years of kind of learning about the way I use my intuition, I was kind of the opposite of you. I didn't believe in astrology. I barely knew my sun sign. So
Fair enough.
I really just didn't, I didn't want to have anything to do. Well, I grew up in Texas, and I wasn't really surrounded by anybody who talked about anything remotely metaphysical or anything like that. So for me, the angels were a really safe way to enter into the realm of using my intuitive abilities. And I also have my background. I graduated from university with my degree in accounting and business administration. So I also love numbers. I like organization. I like structure. And to me, not only were angels safe, but it was a way to kind of organize that. It's like, okay, I call on this angel when I need protection, and I call on this angel when I need creativity. But eventually that, my love for numbers led me into numerology, which then led me into finding you, because then I found out that you work with the angels. And I actually did ask the angels to help me find an astrologer that worked with the angels. I didn't even know that at the time that I found you.
Like, I was in the closet at the beginning.
You were. And it's fascinating because I still wasn't that open to astrology. It was your step system. The numbers that got me. And then I started listening, and I started watching and tracking the patterns, and the rest is history.
You say you saw an angel as a child. Can you tell us what the angel looked like? Did you know it was an angel?
It was an experience I had when I was in college. Okay. And I was 19 years old. I was, let's see, I guess it was between my sophomore and junior year. And I was going through what I would consider now a low level of depression. Now, we didn't talk about that back then. That wasn't something that you really heard about. It was kind of a hush hush. If anybody was depressed, you didn't talk about your feelings. You didn't talk about somebody else. And it wasn't even anything major. I wasn't that excited about getting my accounting degree. It was kind of the opposite of what I wanted to do, but it was also something I understood. I didn't mind it. I just wasn't excited about it. I had gone through kind of a breakup situation and was feeling like, now what am I going to do with my life? Just a low level, I would say, I also was feeling like I was letting God down because, and this is something I hear a lot of other people talk about when they want to connect with angels. They're like, well, I can't really complain. I mean, I'm getting my college degree. I have a family that loves me. Looking around in my reality, I have nothing to complain about. So why do I feel this way? So now I feel like I'm letting God down. And I also—
What year were you? Was that like
I'm
freshman
sorry?
or sophomore? What year was it?
so it was after my sophomore year. I was 19. And so I also had a deep connection with animals growing up. That was one of the ways I felt really close with God, is I would be out in nature with my horses, my cats and dogs, all the animals. And I worked out at a barn during college to get extra money, play money and everything. And so I would go turn out horses, feed them, clean stalls, all that. And I was out there one morning with my horse, Honey, and I was cleaning and did all my work and just extra low that day. I mean, not anything that you could really would raise a red flag that it's so hard to describe, but I just remember thinking, why do I feel this way? And I remember being with my horse and putting my hand on her shoulder and just thinking, I'm really letting God down. I'm so ungrateful. I shouldn't be feeling this way. And about an hour later, when I finished up all my chores, I went back to take a quick nap at my house before heading to class. I was in summer school up at college, and I woke up I probably was asleep maybe 10 minutes. I would say it was more of like a, light, deep meditation kind of thing. And I remember opening my eyes, kind of wondering what time it was. And then the room was full of light, really, really bright light. Wow. And it was so light that actually I remember barely opening my eyes, just a little bit. And I could make out 6 pillars of light around the edge of my bed that went from the floor to the ceiling. And I would have described it as like shoulders that went into a head, but not what you saw, what you described. I didn't see like muscular beings with wings and halos. It was just very, very bright. And the 6 figures you could make out, in like a horseshoe shape. And then there was music. Really? And it was like they were singing, and it was like a chorus, and there was a crescendo. And at the time I hadn't done any of my studying of the chakras or energy healing. So I wouldn't really know how to describe it back then, but I would say now it was almost like they were hitting the tone of each chakra. And so they sang it, there was a crescendo, it got louder and louder and louder, and then it was gone.
Wow.
And it was just, the room was just normal daylight. It was probably like 1:30 in the afternoon because I had like a 2:30 class or something. And I just sat up like, what was that?
Right.
And it was, even now I'm like, I still can go back to that moment of just going, what was that? But it wasn't scary. It wasn't even it was startling in the way that you're like, what the heck was that? But it was not shocking, and I didn't feel fear. I felt very, very safe. And so I didn't know what to think about it, but I knew I had to get to class. And funny enough, it was a speech class, and here we are speaking to each other online. But I remember going and not hearing anything that happened in the class other than just thinking, what happened? And finally, I remember saying to myself, I don't know what that was, but I know it was real. And then I became aware of the message. And I can never really tell this without getting choked up, but the message was, everything's okay. You are not letting God down. Just keep going. And it was just like, what do you do with that other than, well, okay, I'll just keep going. But it felt so good. And I remember thinking, like, this is a world that I don't even know how to describe to someone else. Because again, I didn't grow up around anybody with talking about, astrology or anything metaphysical, mediums, or anything with energy healing at all. When my grandmother talked to me about it, she stayed very much to the text in the Bible and just traditional discussion, but she did constantly remind me, you do have this support. So it took me probably 3 or 4 days to finally say something to my parents. I remember talking to my mom and saying, I don't know what that was. And they were like, you need to call grandma. Don't you remember she had the experience? And I was like, oh yeah. I mean, it was like back when I was in middle school or something. And I think she sat me down in high school and told me a story of where she saw an angel. And in this story, She thought at first it was her mom before she'd done a lot of research, but she had made a deal with her mother that she would come back and tell her everything's okay after she passed on. And so she felt like this was her mother's way of coming back after she had passed away, like years later. And I said, well, Grandma, are you going to do that for me? And she said, well, you betcha. And this was in high school. That's the only part I really remember about that. I was just like horse crazy, boy crazy, all of it. And I didn't give it the credence it deserved, but I sure remembered it when Mom said that.
Yeah.
So I called her and we had a really good visit. And she said, oh, Devin, I've driven to libraries far, far away, because this is before the internet, that she had her experience, but she did a lot of her own research and she found a way to come to a level of comfort with that was real for her. And in her heart, she really believed that was her mother coming to tell her, it's all good. Everything we thought, everything's good. We're loved and supported. And my grandmother has come back to me several times and held her end of the bargain as well.
Oh, a beautiful story. And grandmas are so inspirational on those levels. Mine too. I could go off on a tangent. I'm here because of my grandmother too. So at what point did you, that's a phenomenal story. And I have had a miracle story too. And the one thing I'll say to anyone out there who has doubts about the angels or skepticism or want to know more is a heartfelt prayer to them. I'll just say that I'll never forget the day that I prayed from my heart, because I was hitting the lowest low of my life at that time. And I got a miracle unfolded. And it's like one of those things that your friends may not even believe you, no, but you will know in your own consciousness that this shift is real. Like, and maybe praying for that miracle is the first step. So how did you move? At what point did you just start communicating with them? I mean, actually having conversation and use them as a reader.
So I definitely stayed in connection with them from that point forward, intentionally on my own, because I was taught by my grandmother about it. And I have since heard from so many people that it was their grandmother that activated them to become a light worker. But yeah. I went ahead and graduated from college with my accounting degree, did a couple different things, and ultimately went into small business consulting. And so for about 16 years, I was still in a very left brain field with all the work I did was around numbers, investing, all that kind of stuff, until it was around 2015 that I had the dream where my grandmother came and told me, get to work. And that was when I realized, well, first of all, I had no idea what she was talking about.
Yeah. Like, what do you mean, Mom? I'm a full-time accountant.
Yeah, exactly. What do you mean get to work? I feel like I'm never laying down and I was like, what else can I be doing? But it took me reviewing my past, which is a key thing that I'm always teaching people when they're wanting to develop their own intuitive abilities and develop their own connection with the angels. Hindsight is 2020. And if we don't write down our experiences, our mind will sometimes try to tell us it didn't happen, or it will try to change what happened. So I remember just spending a lot of time recalling the conversations I had had with my grandmother as a child, and eventually realized that it had something to do with animals and angels, because that's what we always talked about. And I started reading books, trying on my own to connect more intentionally instead of just doing it when I needed it. That's the other thing. I thought of the angels as, okay, I need help. Now I ask. And then I started realizing you could ask for help for all kinds of things. You could ask for help for creative ideas. You can ask for help with just making things go smoother. I mean, all these things that I just started tracking it. And I really got good at journaling and writing down when I would ask for something and the response I would get. And I started tracking the different ways. Anyways, I did that for a good year or so in the spiritual closet, as you mentioned earlier, and I didn't tell anybody. And then I decided I was feeling lonely and I wanted to find my tribe. So I asked the angels again, can you help me find people I can connect with that will talk to me about this, that have had experiences? And sure enough, here comes the friends in my life that I had already known, but had no idea they had their own spiritual practice or belief. And we started talking, and next thing I know, I was doing angel readings for them, and they were getting validation. And eventually I was sitting in front of another reader one day, and she told me, what are you doing? you're supposed to be doing this yourself. And I mean, it was hard to
Okay.
hear because I was like, how am I going to do that? Like, nobody sees me this way. You know, I do accounting work, you know, I'm the like PTA mom. Like, how can I go from this to talking to animals and angels and doing it in this way? But, you know, eventually the angels showed me the way. And I'm so grateful to do this work every single day. I love the work I do with Serious Joy. I wake up every day excited to do the work I do, and I get choked up talking about it.
And since you've segued to Serious Joy, I'll just say right now that you came on as a guest, you were a subscriber, you became one of our favorite guests to have on soul support groups. I got to know you, realized you're an angel reader. And now she has a daily show called Angel Intuitive that's 7 days a week, where she is basically looking at the astrology and then asking the angels, hey, what do you have for them today? And she channels an angel message 7 days a week. And once a month, you have Angel Intervention, a show where we have 3 subscribers come on and get angel readings live on camera with you, so you can kind of see how it is you work. So one great reason to join Serious Joy. We'll also talk about other ways to get in touch with Devin outside of Serious Joy too. But this begs the question for me. The question I have is, how do you recognize the voice of the angels inside of you? How do you know it's not your imagination?
I really feel, I mean, for me, I needed to experience it a lot. I needed to track it. I needed it to happen over and over again. It wasn't going to be just one time of seeing 1111, or, you know, one time of having the hawk fly by right while I'm having this thought. I had to track it. I had to write it down. I had to ask for help and basically review what was happening a lot. That's why I always talk about hindsight is, you know, even just at the end of the day, the last 5 minutes of my day, thinking about the ways that I received help or guidance, and also thinking about the times that I thought I received help and I didn't follow it, which then things didn't go so well.
Yep.
Or where maybe I misunderstood it because my mind wanted to hear a different answer, which is something I know you deal with as a reader. We sometimes sit across from somebody who wants an answer, but the angels are like, that's not why you're here. We have other messages for you that are more important, or we need you to focus on this. Let that go. Because it's not in your highest interest. So it really came down to practice. And I know everybody probably would love for it to just be a light switch that flips on and it's like automatically you're channeling all these messages. But the truth is that would be too much. You know, we wouldn't be able to really distinguish. And most people who do this work, they're empaths. So they're picking up on everybody that lives within their home. They're picking up on their neighbors and anything happening in the collective. So you know, everybody has the capability to do it, but it takes that practice, it takes paying attention. And, you know, the way I teach it is thinking of the acronym, the word angel. I created a thing for my classes where I teach people to connect the word angel. So first of all, you have ask. You have to actually ask for them to connect because we have the law of free will.
Yes.
And we want to make sure we're setting that intention that we're connecting with the highest vibrational beings, God's angels. We're not just connecting with the person who passed away down the street. You know, we may not want their guidance, you know? And so, and then also I know that a lot of people, they're fearful of this connection. So you can feel a lot safer that way. We do have to ask. Then the next letter in the word angel is N for notice. So I say, now you got to start noticing when you are seeing those repetitive numbers, the license plates, you know, you're wondering what to have for dinner and your friend calls you up and says, hey, I'm making pasta, come on over. And you're just like, how did that happen? But you would ask the angels for divine flow. You got to notice where you get blocked from doing things. And then it turns out there was a better way. So always noticing what's happening, being very aware. And then the letter G is gratitude. So of course, always thanking the angels for their help. And then when you see a sign, even if you don't understand, you know, I was at the gas pump the other day, I pulled up to the gas pump and it said $22.22. And I wasn't looking for a sign, but I saw it and I thought, noted, thank you, angels. I just said, thank you, angels. I don't know what that means right now. It turned out later that it was guiding me to make some different decisions in my schedule and it all worked out really well. but if I hadn't had that hindsight, I don't know that I would have connected it. So I just went into gratitude. And then E for an angel is expectations. So we want to expect the angels to answer us when it's in our highest interest, but we also don't want to expect the answer to come in a certain way, because the angels can see things from that 30,000 foot perspective, that they can see things we can't. They can see other people's motives behind something that we may not be aware. So staying in that place of gratitude and not expecting it to happen a certain way really helps bring in that guidance even faster and that help even faster. And then finally, the last word, the last letter, L, I just say, let go. I will often ask the angels for help and then forget about it and just be like, they've got this. I'm going to trust that it's going to work out. And that's really helpful when you're waking up in the middle of the night thinking about your to-do list for the next day and it's too much. I will ask angels, please help me be able to get everything done or to receive the help to get it done, or something better. I leave it very open and then I try to do something else to move myself out of that worry. So that's really my biggest tips there for that. Yeah.
That's an A to Z right there, almost A to L. I love it. And, speaking, I want to affirm that you have to do that practice. I remember plenty of times where I'm like, angels, am I supposed to ask this girl out? And they're like, no. And I'm like, what, are you sure? Come on, there must be, I want a rebuttal on that or whatever, and sure enough, like if I went against that advice, I found myself in some trouble. I also like that you sort of demystify this idea, as far as like certain myths around angels. I kind of operated the same way where I felt like only if I was, only if someone had cancer, like I was afraid of bugging the angels over small stuff. And I used to feel like I shouldn't waste their time or whatever, but it turns out, it seems like they're very much there for us in the tiniest of things. And they must enjoy it or they wouldn't do it, right? Like, what are some other myths about the angels that it doesn't have to be, a life-threatening moment?
Right. Yeah. Well, that's a very good example that I will hear a lot of people say, well, I don't want to bother the angels in case they're helping somebody else who needs it more. If we all have our guardian angels and then we have the archangels that we can connect with for certain things, if we're more open to it. But for me, the way I view it is, would you rather, hide someone's keys to keep them from getting in that fender bender down the road? Or would you rather have to get in between the vehicles to keep the fender bender from happening? I mean, they would much rather help you before things get to the point that it's this dramatic intervention, which is almost terrifying. I mean, I've heard people have experiences with angels that did scare them because they were in a life-threatening situation and the angels came in a fast way and their brain associated that scary event with it. And even though ultimately they came back to realize like, oh gosh, I was definitely saved by the angels and I'm very grateful, it's still just, it was terrifying to them. Whereas for me, I have always felt like if you practice connecting with them, most of the time the messages you will get will be very subtle, gentle. You should not be feeling fear. You should not be feeling, I will say sometimes people are, one of the myths is like, if you don't listen, they're mad at you. No, they're just going to try a different way to get your attention. They're going to try a different tactic to guide you next time. And definitely not, waiting around till things get really desperate to call on them. Go ahead and ask for their angels. Start practicing right now and notice what you get.
Beautiful. So do you have a favorite angel? And what does that feel like when it's a favorite? Like, I mean, that sounds, of course we don't want to choose favorites for angels. It's like,
yeah, I definitely wouldn't say I have a favorite angel. And I would also say here that you don't have to believe in like the different archangels to connect. I know there's a lot of people out there that would rather just be like, let's just call them my guardian angels, or let's just call them angels, God's angels. That's totally fine. My accountant brain likes the organization of, all right, I quickly need protection. I'm going to call on Archangel Michael or Archangel Metatron. Okay, I quickly need to, get a creative idea or creative solution. I'm going to call on Archangel Gabriel or Archangel Samuel. So I have studied enough about the different literatures out there, the scripture and what other people experience, that I feel like I can call on certain angels and feel an instant connection, but not everybody's that way. So to get back to your original question, no, I don't really have a favorite. I would say probably the angels I work with the most are Archangel Michael, Archangel Metatron, and Archangel Jophiel. I do work with Archangel Ratziel a lot, which we talked about a lot in the 40 Days of Self-Love, but that's a newer relationship I've been developing. It was kind of like, if I really felt guided, I would connect. But ever since we started the 40 Days of Self-Love, I actually have been actively connecting with Archangel Ratziel, and that's been a really interesting energy. But I've also read where sometimes, Ratziel will come in when you're ready at a certain level. So sometimes people don't always identify it as Ratziel energy. But again, you don't have to know these names to connect with the angels. You don't even have to ever learn the names. I just find it a faster connection. I find I get a faster validation by studying that and working that way.
Well, each angel seems to have an expertise. In my experience, I mean, I had an angel reader tell me, you've been working with the angels. It was like a Dorothy moment. Like, you've been working with the angels the whole time. In fact, all of your readings come from Archangel Ratziel. I'm like, really? And then because I could feel a presence when I do readings, I would feel this presence, and the presence felt very familiar. And so, I use the word favorite, but the truth is like, for me, some angels feel much more familiar, like we're old buddies or something. There's like a rapport there that I didn't develop. And other angels, it feels like I'm knocking on a stranger's door for trick or treat. Like, it's just completely like, hi, jovial or whatever, for me. But and to me, the most familiar is Ratziel, but I didn't know his name until an angel reader told me. And Metatron feels very familiar for some reason. Like, I feel like I've known that dude forever.
I really like the way you said that, familiar. It is definitely the case that there are certain angels I don't feel as familiar with unless I intentionally connect on a regular basis. And that's kind of what I meant about Archangel Ratziel. I was aware of Ratziel and different people who worked very closely with Ratziel, and some of the scriptures on Ratziel are really fascinating. The book of Ratziel is so interesting. But I started off with Archangel Michael because it felt the safest, and I felt the energy so quickly, that I just only worked with Archangel Michael for quite a while. And then eventually I moved on to learning more about connecting with Archangel Gabriel, and I just took my time. So if you are just getting started out there, I would start with just your guardian angel. And I don't mean just your guardian angel, but, I would start with your guardian angel, the ones that are standing right behind you, and ask for a sign that they're there, and ask for some kind of sensation that you can know that they're close. Because that's a really good one to start building that connection and building that trust in the connection.
Yeah, Michael's always felt familiar, but for some reason we stand on the opposite sides of the bar. Like, I'm just like, hey, Mike, like, I see him across the way, but we don't interact for some reason. I don't know why. I respect him, totally respect him. He seems to be a lot of people's favorite angel, or very familiar angel. Do you have any tips or tricks on how to pray to the angels? I mean, I know there's no right way per se, but is there a certain mode that you find they hear you the best in quiet, with water in front of an altar? Is there anything that makes it easier to get the message through?
That's a great question. And no, and also all of the above, because it depends on my state of energy. And this is why I'm really big on people learning to develop their spiritual practice. And if they want to connect with the angels, there's other things that have to be in place with your daily routine if you're going to consistently be aware of the signs and the guidance. It's not that the guidance and signs are not there. It's that if you don't have a practice of grounding yourself, some meditation, some journaling, some breath work, sound healing, whatever it is that helps you feel centered, then you're going to be a lot less likely to notice those signs. And then you're going to start to mistrust it, or you're going to get out of the habit for asking. So I really like to first encourage, the first thing I would say is create a spiritual routine. And there's so many things you can do. I like to say to people, get up 5 minutes early, set your alarm for 5 minutes early, and get out your journal and just write, I write, I'll tell you what I write. I write, thank you, God, for today. Hi, angels and guides, please help me have an amazing day in divine flow. And I'll just write that. That takes less than a minute. And then at the end of the day, I'll think about my day and I'll think about where I noticed a sign. Sometimes I'll write that down. And if you're not big into journaling, that's all it really takes, is to have that connection there. But I will say, as far as tips and signs, I would notice sensations you get in your physical body, because that is one that we all are aware of, our physical body. Sometimes we do have to go into a place of meditation to notice a sign, or we need to go for a walk and get all that energy out. I mean, walking meditations are very valuable for me, and I just get a lot of the energy out. And then I find I'm very open and receiving signs. But I like to just ask for, sensations and like in my physical body, and notice if I ask for something, do I feel it in my heart? Do I feel it in my leg? Do I feel it on the back of my neck? And then just track it, track the way you're getting it, because we all have intuitive abilities, but we all get the signs and symbols differently.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I found with myself that my prayers are more answered if I pray from the heart. Like, I've had many times I prayed, but the times that I pray with my heart, like not hurting, I don't want to say hurting, but just like angst, like, please, Lord, like that sort of like heartfelt yearning. That's when I seem to have the greatest, fastest response from the angels.
I would definitely describe that as surrender, and
Okay.
definitely surrendering, that's kind of that letting go again. Like, I am giving this up to God and the angels will show me signs and symbols. And I am trusting that this is all going to work out. And another one of my favorite affirmations, if you do want to start a spiritual routine, is just simply saying, I am in divine flow, and do it 3 times with a deep breath each time. And anytime you do that, you're going to be getting more into alignment to receive guidance. And just try to practice that when you get up in the morning, before you go to bed. If you're stuck in traffic, that's one of my favorite times. If I'm late getting somewhere, I go into, I am in divine flow. So, but that's another form of, it's like not quite the dramatic surrender of being on your knees and pouring your heart out, but it is a surrender that I'm just trusting that the reason I just got cut off by that person for the 3rd time is because it's keeping me from an accident down the road. I'm in divine flow. So
Getting into divine flow.
yeah.
Do you have any theories that you've been working with the angels for a long time? Do you have any theories on what their role is in heaven officially? I mean, the Judaism claims rights to the angels. Christianity claims rights to the angels. I would probably guess that angels are non-denominational, like would be my guess. What is your theory as an angel readers, what role they play for God?
I definitely feel it is more of that vibrational being that is able to connect with us on a level that we can interpret it and understand it and receive the help without it just causing total chaos. I see God as this, such a high vibrational source, that this is God's way of letting us have this human experience, but not be totally alone. But if God were to intervene, it would be like the experience was over, because we would feel totally connected, which is what we want. That's what our heart wants. But we have this illusion that we're separate from God when we're in this human body. And so the angels are here to kind of bridge that illusion that we are separate from God, and just say, hey, we're still here. You still have help. You are not separate from God. God is everywhere, but you forgot. So we're going to send you 444 every time you start complaining about your boss, so you can remember, hey, you're supported. Let's get out of this mindset. Let's look at this differently. We're here, spiritual beings having a human experience.
Yeah, it seems like, God, if I had to be in front of the Almighty every time I lost my keys, I don't know. I think the angels do serve as a good, I'd much rather deal with Ratziel or someone else than have to deal with the one, kind of thing. If it feels like, I often find that my prayers are answered more from the angels than they are from just God. And that's not to say I don't believe in God. I'm praying to God and the angels all the time. But it seems like the angels really are God. It seems like when I pray to God, God's like, refers to an angel. That's what it feels like, that
Yeah.
the angels become the execution of God's will. It seems like
it does feel that way. And, if you do study scriptures, that's how it's described. And so it's an easy way to, identify whether you do believe in formal religion and that kind of thing or not. Other humans were trying to describe it that way as well, as though it was, they made a prayer to God and then God sent the angels for the message or the help or whatever they needed. And I do want to add one more thing, that I am always very, very careful to intentionally connect with God's angels. I do first pray to God and ask that his angels help, because I want that extra layer of protection. But I do agree. I mean, I do feel like I'm always talking to God. I'm always in gratitude, but I do feel like the angels are the ones that are, paying attention to that 30,000 foot perspective and going, well, we want to help her find a way to get out of town. But if she picks that weekend, that's not going to be good for her kids or her parents or whatever. And so they're in there guiding you more on a, smaller basis, so to speak, nudging you to check out this website or call this person for advice. And, I think that that's kind of where we have that gift from God of having this experience. And so God's kind of like, you go have this experience, and this is my way of connecting with you without taking that experience from you.
brilliant. We could talk about this forever. I'm going to have to invite you back on to talk about angels again in the future, maybe the next level. This is our intro to angels. Tell us a little bit about your work. You're at Serious Joy. So if anyone's a subscriber to Serious Joy, they're getting Devin Dewar 5 days a week. You personally, though, in your own practice, private practice, you encourage journaling. That seems to be your preferred expression and way to work with the angels, right? And that's something you have an offer for our viewers today in regard to that. Please tell us what that is.
Yes. So I teach journaling workshops. I have for a long time. I teach a method that is designed to help you understand the way you receive intuitive information, because again, we all receive it differently. And what I love about Sensei Christopher's step system is when you know your steps, when you know your chart, it can help you identify it even faster. So for example, I'm a Cancer sun sign. It was pretty easy to figure out that I tend to get a feeling about something before I get a knowing. Whereas other people just, my Capricorn friends, it's a knowing, and things like that. So I definitely would say that tracking it in a journal, okay, I had a feeling my boss was upset with me. Okay, so now you're clairsentient. You're getting feelings that way. Or, I knew that person was going to call up and cancel on me. I knew it. Now you're claircognizant. So you want to be paying attention to this and tracking it. And I teach that method in my journal, Book of Evidence. Proof Your Angels Are With You is the one I release. But I have a free offer for you if you just want to see what the method is like. And it's a 5-day journaling challenge that will help you deepen your connection with the angels. So the QR code below, you can go to my website. You can go to the link I have under my YouTube channel. I have a couple different places you can get to it. And you sign up for the 5-day journaling challenge. You'll get a downloadable PDF that shows you my method. And then for 5 days, you'll get an angel message in your inbox, and you'll see that I guide you through getting the message, writing it in your journal, which will be your PDF. You can use your own journal if you want, and then reflecting at the end of the day. And it's under 5 minutes to do this, because over the years of teaching journaling, I've met so many people who cringe at the idea, or they get excited about it, but then they let it go and they feel guilty. And we just want to leave all that behind. We're talking about 1 to 5 minutes to just intentionally get guidance, reflect on it, and use hindsight to interpret it.
Brilliant. And I find if you do that 5 minutes, then you're sort of logged in all day. And I find that if I have some sort of practice like that, a disciplined practice, I'm sort of aware of messages coming in. Whereas if I don't do that practice, I sort of don't pay attention. So this is a 5-day challenge. We do have the QR code right now to do that free challenge and sign up with you. Your YouTube channel, what is your YouTube channel, just so we can hear about it? You do some videos.
It's my name, at Devin Dewar. Yep.
Okay.
DEVONDUERR. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So I have the links there. And I did want to say a quick shout out to my co-host Heather Exposito with Angel Intervention too, because I have so much fun with the entire team at Serious Joy, and we have that first week of September coming up on Soul Support Group, and she is such a phenomenal channel on her own and astrologer on her own that she has a lot of fun. I have so much fun working with her. So if you do subscribe or you're already a subscriber, please check that out, because she and I are always on the same path with the angels when we're talking to our guests.
Yeah, I love it. It's like The View with Angels, that show.
That's what we feel like. We were talking about the other day. We were like, we're the two best friends that you call when you went through a breakup. We're like, get your PJs, we're coming over.
Yeah, so, it's beautiful. They both do a great job. That's the first Wednesday of every month on seriousjoy.com for those who want to subscribe to Serious Joy, or check her out on her YouTube channel, or check out her 5-day challenge. Well, thank you, Devin. You are truly a blessing. You live up to your calling. We love you, and we're so grateful you've been on today's show. I've got nothing but great comments about you the whole time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll see you next time. I'll see you at work.
See you at work. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Bye, all right, folks. Okay. Oh, you know what? There's a little moment here, Devin. Pardon the awkwardness. We just have to, hold on. Here we go. And I'll let you go. There you go. Sorry about that. We're getting better at that, folks. We appreciate it. Just a quickie, just a reminder of how to stay in touch with us. Serious Joy, we're here to help you follow your dream and live the dream. SeriousJoy.com. It's just $3.99 for the first 30 days. If you haven't tried it before, we will help you change your life. We are like having a best friend in your pocket. I text message you 7 times a day based on your chart, and we have a whole practitioner team. This week, this upcoming Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, we have our mega monthly Lights of the Round Table. And what this is that we go over the entire month of Serious Joy, of the month of September. We go over the entire month, and we have on this our whole team of light. We call them the Lights of the Round Table. Kristen Ryder, our sound healer. Robbie Hunt, our metaphysical minister and also astrologer. Heather Exposito, our lead writer and the co-host of that show we just talked about, and who you just saw, Devin Doer. So we do a full 2 hours this coming Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, walking through the month of September and what you can expect. A lot of people ask, what can we do to support you, Sensei Christopher? It's very simple. Just referring your friends and family. Sharing is caring, my friends. If you're not part of Serious Joy, if you don't have the money right now, we understand. If you can't buy a reading, we understand. Just tell us to your friends. Share us with your friends and family, and post our stuff on social media. I do have to say, I am very grateful for everyone that has shared us and put us on social media. I'll talk about a social media post that we have here in just a minute. Some people do like to donate, and I want to say thank you for the donations. Some people like to give back from that formation. If you'd like to donate, it's paypal.me/Sensei Christopher for donations. And I do send a thank you one way or another for that. So thank you very much. We have a Facebook club, and this is probably the easiest way to stay in touch with us is our Facebook club. It's at seriousjoy.club. And if you are a light practitioner, you are welcome to advertise your services in our club. That makes our club very unique. Most clubs don't allow outside vendors. We welcome outside vendors. We just say no politics and compassion in all your posts. We also invite you to invite your friends. So for those who already are a part of the club, there's a way on there to invite your friends to join the club as well. And if you are a part of the club, the good thing you get is the daily Zodiac Weather. The daily Zodiac Weather basically is a synopsis of the day. I put these out 7 days a week. They have a pretty picture. They have a synopsis. They have an emoticon. And if you are a part of our club, that will pop up in your feed. Or if you like to follow us on other social media, you can get to our LinkedIn tree at seriousjoy.social. seriousjoy.social. That will take you to all the links. Also, how to get on our mailing list. We have a weekly email letter that goes out, tells us what's going on. So stay in our community, stay a part of it, and follow us on one of the many social medias. Even my personal platforms are on there and our corporate platforms. And we found out that some people would much rather listen to this podcast versus watch it on YouTube and all the platforms. No problem. We are available as an audio podcast on Stitcher, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, usually available the following morning. So available by Saturday morning for your listening enjoyment. All right, friends. Well, it's been a long show, but a darn good one. I really enjoyed that segment with Devin Doer. If anyone knows of someone you recommend that we should interview, email us at support@seriousjoy.com. I'll be back in 1 week after this full moon, and I'm expecting all of us to feel quite different in that week because I think we're becoming someone new on the inside. I want to say until then, thank you. I am grateful for you. We love you, and live, love, be.